Chapter 713. The current patriarch walked out with a cane. In Fengtian Divine Kingdom, he could be said to be the person with the highest authority. In the eyes of the other forces of Fengtian Divine Kingdom, he was equivalent to the king. When he came out, everyone respectfully shouted, "Patriarch." Their voices were full of respect, no one dared to disrespect him, respect from the bottom of their hearts. It's just that he's getting old and ready to abdicate, no wonder the competition is so fierce. The three elders are basically candidates for the next patriarch, but to become a candidate, it's not just a matter of having a strong cultivation. There must be requirements in all aspects, such as personal prestige, the situation of one's own children, etc. These are all absolute requirements. Yi Tianyun squinted his eyes and looked at the old man. The patriarch of Fengtian Divine Kingdom's real name is Suo Kaifeng, but everyone calls him patriarch. After all, it's a great disrespect. Suo Kaifeng slowly walked out and looked at Yi Tianyun up and down, saying with a sigh, "I didn't expect little Star's child to be so old. At such a young age, he already has such a strong cultivation, it's really amazing. His cultivation is much stronger than Yi Tianyun's, plus he has the pure bloodline power of the King of the Heavens, so he can feel that Yi Tianyun's cultivation is very strong. However, he doesn't know the details, he only knows that Yi Tianyun's cultivation is not bad. He doesn't have appraisal eyes, so how can he know that Yi Tianyun is wearing the desolate ancient set? This is his biggest advantage, as well as his crazy mode. Before erupting, he's already a powerful first-layer Saint King stage master, and after erupting, even a peak Saint King stage master would find it difficult to stop him. Many thanks for the patriarch's praise. Yi Tianyun said respectfully. Although the third elder and the great elder gave him a very bad impression, and it can even be said that their overall impression was very poor, after all, they were very resistant to their bloodline power, and even privately scolded him for being a bastard, but the patriarch in front of him is different, he can feel the patriarch's sincere appreciation. "Patriarch, what did you say?" The third elder was dumbfounded. When Suo Kaifeng came out just now, he said that he would accept the equipment set on his behalf. Did this mean that his memory would be searched? I'm talking about helping your subordinate with this set of equipment. Since the younger generation wants to offer such a shocking divine weapon, there's no need to care about where it came from. Suo Kaifeng said indifferently, "I heard everything you said earlier. Since you claim to be innocent, we can't waste this set of equipment. It would be considered a national treasure of our Fengtian Divine Kingdom. Don't worry, I'll be personally in charge of searching your soul. With my abilities, as long as you don't resist, it won't hurt your soul at all. Moreover, if they were searching for ordinary memories, the damage would be even smaller. I don't need the martial arts in your head. Letting me search your soul is undoubtedly the best choice." Suo Kaifeng's soul search was undoubtedly the best choice. He was about to step into his coffin, and he didn't care about any martial arts. What martial arts didn't he know in the Fengtian Divine Kingdom? What others knew, he knew. What others didn't know, he knew. Cultivators could live for a long time, but it was extremely rare for them to live to the end of their lives. The fact that Suo Kaifeng could live to this day meant that he had a good character and was very strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to live to this day. But. The third elder was dumbfounded. Originally, he could still find an excuse. Now that the patriarch had said that he could accept it, what else could he say? Rebel against the patriarch? Wouldn't that be rebelling against the entire Fengtian Divine Kingdom? The first elder's face darkened. Didn't this mean that their actions were finally going to be exposed? What else do you have to say this time? Suo Kaifeng said. You can say it. Why don't you want to accept the soul search? Could it be that the two of you really did something shameful like what they said? No. The third elder's face was pale, but his tone was very weak. If you didn't, why didn't you search my soul? Suo Kaifeng said coldly. Are you going to search my soul as well? Or what do you want? No. Patriarch, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done such a thing. Please let me go. The third elder could only kneel down and kowtow under the pressure. He had no choice but to admit to what he had done. What other excuse could he come up with? He had no more excuses. If his soul was searched, he might as well admit it now. When he kowtowed, the crowd immediately became angry. They didn't expect him to continue to quibble after being seen through by Yi Tianyun. Now that he was finally willing to admit it, the crowd was furious. The third elder and the first elder really did it. I didn't expect them to be the culprit. They kept saying that they weren't the culprit behind Yi Xingqian's death, but who knew that they were the culprit? Damn it, doesn't this mean that we've blamed the wrong people? This isn't sorcery. They really said it. This is too scary. They really made them tell the truth. But this third elder and the first elder are too disgusting. They're willing to do anything just for power. All of them were filled with righteous indignation. They wanted nothing more than to beat them up. Yi Xingqian was their future powerhouse. Now that he was half crippled, it would be difficult for him to catch up in the future. For their own sake, they had done such a disgusting thing. It was truly disgusting. Patriarch, we were wrong. We were blinded by greed. Please give us another chance. We won't do it again. The first elder also knelt down. The third elder had already knelt down, which meant that everything had been exposed. If he did not quickly admit his mistake, the consequences would undoubtedly be even more severe. You too. Yi Yuanlong kicked angrily. The force was so great that it caught the third elder off guard. With a thud, the third elder, who was closest to him, was sent flying. He spat out blood in the air. Even though the third elder's cultivation was not low, he could not react to the sudden kick. He then glared at the first elder and said coldly, I've guessed it before, but I didn't expect the two of you to really do this. We're of the same clan. I didn't expect the two of you to do this. What's the point of killing each other? Isn't this power? Isn't it just the position of patriarch? What do you get by becoming the patriarch? Wasn't it just to obtain more resources and more authority? My son has become a sacrifice. You. Yi Yuanlong was furious. He wanted to kill them with his sword, but with the patriarch here, he could not do so. Everything was decided by Suo Kaifeng. He did not have the right to decide. The first elder remained silent. He did not plan to defend himself. The matter was already settled. What else could he say? Yi Tianyun kept his equipment and said calmly, looks like I don't have to give away my equipment. Chapter 7:14. As expected, you were the ones who ambushed us. We were already thinking of leaving the Fengtian Divine Kingdom, but you were still so ruthless. Zhao Lingyi's eyes were red. If not for these two beasts, she would have descended to the mortal world with Yi Xingqian a long time ago. Yi Tianyun would not have suffered so much. It was all because of these two beasts that they ended up like this. They had separated mother and son, and Yi Xingqian had fallen into a deep slumber. His cultivation had dropped significantly, and too much time had been wasted. When the truth was revealed, Zhao Lingyi trembled with anger. Although she had already expected it, she was still furious when it was announced. What a good fratricide. I didn't expect you to murder your own clansmen for this position. Suo Kaifeng looked at the two of them coldly and said sternly, do you think this is meaningful? If there are no experts to protect the Fengtian Divine Kingdom, even if you are clan leaders, you can only watch helplessly as your empire is taken away. Of course, I know what all of you want to do by sitting in this position. It's nothing more than to cultivate the most powerful and supreme techniques. But are you qualified now? Suo Kaifeng's aura completely exploded. At this point, no one felt that he was a dying man. Instead, it was as if he was still in the prime of his youth, invincible. The terrifying aura caused the hearts of the surrounding people to tremble. After so long, the clan leader's power was still as terrifying as ever. The first elder and the others had gloomy expressions. The third elder had already crawled to his feet. He covered the place where he had been kicked and lowered his head, not daring to raise it. They were afraid of the clan leader. With their strength, how could they resist? Moreover, even if you don't become clan leaders, you can still cultivate supreme martial arts. There are no rules for that, Suo Kaifeng said coldly. What? The two of them raised their heads in shock. Even the others looked at Suo Kaifeng in shock, not knowing what he meant. The two of them wanted to become clan leaders for the secret supreme martial arts, which was equivalent to the inheritance of the King of the Heavens. Only the patriarch could obtain it. But now, Suo Kaifeng said that he didn't need it. Wasn't he fooling around? It's not wrong to want to cultivate supreme martial arts, but there has always been a rule. As long as one's contribution is large enough and one's ability is not bad, one can cultivate it. Not allowing you to cultivate is largely because your Tao heart is not firm enough. With your current Tao heart, how are you going to cultivate? Suo Kaifeng said coldly, killing fellow tribesmen is a rule of the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. Do you remember? The two of them shuddered, and their eyes were filled with terror. Patriarch, we were wrong, we were really wrong. We were blinded by greed, please give us another chance. We can cure Yixingchen. No matter what it is, we will find it. Yeah, we don't want to be crippled. That's no different from dying, their faces were filled with fear. Who would want to have their cultivation destroyed? That was basically no different from a cripple. They were still elder-level figures. After their cultivations were crippled, what status would they have left? Their great futures would be ruined just like that. Their sons had ugly expressions on their faces, but there was nothing they could do to stop it. Killing fellow tribesmen, cripple their cultivations, and lock them in jail until they die. Suo Kaifeng said coldly, nothing can be accomplished without rules. You have to pay the price for what you have done. No, no. Yixingchen's escape is equivalent to betraying the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. He is no longer a tribesman of the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. The first elder immediately explained, we are punishing them, to let them know the consequences of betraying the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. This time, he came up with another reason. Everyone was taken aback, but after thinking about it carefully, they realized that it was true. Yixingchen had eloped with Zhao Lingyi, so how could he still be considered a tribesman of the Fengtian Divine Kingdom? It would not be a problem for them to get rid of him. Suo Kaifeng was taken aback, but he did not say anything. Yixingchen had betrayed the Fengtian Divine Kingdom, so his death really had nothing to do with them. You make it sound so nice. Do you think they won't return for the rest of their lives? Do you think he would have left if you hadn't pressured him? Yi Yuanlong said coldly, if you think that he is a traitor, then I will take revenge on Xingchen's behalf and cripple your cultivation. Ha ha ha, but we are of the same tribe. Crippling my cultivation is against the rules. The third elder sneered, no matter what the reason is, Yixingchen has betrayed the Fengtian Divine Kingdom, so he is no longer of the same tribe. They did not expect that they would find a loophole at this critical juncture, leaving the clan leader speechless. Yi Yuanlong was taken aback. His face darkened, and he clenched his fists tightly. If he had made a move, it would have been true. Although they had done something wrong, they were still members of the same tribe. This was a rule set by the King of the Heavens, and no one could break it. That was why the clan leader had given the order. Now that they had found a loophole, Yi Yuanlong wanted to vomit blood. The first elder and the third elder stood up, their eyes filled with glee. They had been forced to confess previously. Now that they thought about it, Yixingchen was no longer a disciple of the Fengtian Divine Kingdom, so what if they killed him? The sudden turn of events left many people dumbfounded. They could not deny that they had lied to the crowd, but they had not done anything wrong. Zhao Lingyi was also not a disciple of the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. She was not even married into the Fengtian Divine Kingdom, so how could they make a move? Then let me deal with you and take revenge on behalf of my father. Yi Tianyun stood up calmly and waved his hand. The evil spirit divine sword appeared in his hand, and a demonic aura wrapped around his arm. He said coldly, I am not a disciple of the Fengtian divine kingdom, so I will not be punished for attacking you. What a joke. You are not a disciple of the Fengtian divine kingdom. Attacking us is equivalent to making an enemy of the Fengtian divine kingdom. Can you bear the consequences? The third elder looked at him coldly, his eyes full of mockery. He had spent so much effort, but in the end, it was all for naught. This made him feel quite satisfied. Making an enemy of the Fengtian divine kingdom? Yi Tianyun said calmly, I have no objections. If the Fengtian divine kingdom insists on making trouble for me, I will spare their lives on account of the king of the heavens. However, I will not hold back the second time. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. They did not expect Yi Tianyun to dare to say such things. This was a divine kingdom, not an ordinary faction. Jiao Lingyi was stunned. She had told her son not to be so rash, but he still said it. However, she chose to stand by Yi Tianyun. She did not want to see the two of them get away scot-free. Chapter 7:15. Life and Death Duel. Most of the people were stunned. Was this kid out of his mind? He actually chose a life and death duel. These two couldn't wait to kill him, but now he said he wanted a life and death duel. What a fool. Absolutely not. Yi Yuanlong hurried to dissuade. This was his own grandson. How could he watch his grandson enter the tiger's mouth? All right. The third elder laughed and said, You said it. You can't change your mind. Didn't you say you wanted to deal with the two of us? Kid, you're really arrogant. You want to deal with us one by one. It's good enough that you can win against me. Yes. I'm not shameless like you two. I won't change my mind. Yi Tianyun pointed at them and said, I said you two come at me together. I don't want you two to come at me alone. Do you understand? Domineering. Absolutely domineering. One person against two elders. His head must have been kicked by a donkey. Although it sounded domineering, everyone felt that Yi Tianyun was an idiot. He couldn't deal with them one by one. Why did he have to deal with two? Jiao Lingyi and the others' faces changed. This was a very dangerous thing. As elders, how could they not have some ability? Especially when they worked together, they were absolutely invincible. Son, you can't do this. Their cultivation is not that simple. Jiao Lingyi hurried to dissuade. Mother, there's no need to say any more. I've made up my mind. Yi Tianyun said indifferently. Sister, there's no need to say any more. Believe in Tianyun. Shi Shuiyun pulled Jiao Lingyi's hand. She signaled her to calm down and not be so worried. She had never been worried. She trusted Yi Tianyun unconditionally. If Yi Tianyun really died one day, she would die with him. It was no big deal. But, these are two elders. Jiao Lingyi was still very worried. She had seen Yi Tianyun's power, but the two elders in front of her were not ordinary elders. They were divine king martial arts elders, and were much stronger than the bandits outside. For example, those robbers cultivated low-grade heaven-ranked martial arts, while they cultivated high-grade heaven-ranked martial arts. Just the difference in martial arts was huge, they were not on the same level at all. When it came to martial arts, there was a huge gap between them. Under the same cultivation level, a high-tier heaven-level martial art would definitely be able to crush an expert of the same cultivation level, and it could even be used to battle a level or two higher. The Great Elder was a peak Spirit King stage expert, and if he fought with a Saint King stage expert, he would be able to hold his own against them for at least 100 moves. Now that he had to deal with two of them, the difficulty was even more shocking. In other words, it was no different from courting death. Child, you can't be so impulsive. I know you are very angry, but they are not that easy to deal with. If you want a life and death duel, then let me do it. Yi Yuanlong gritted his teeth and finally stood up. I will participate in the life and death duel, even if I have to be punished. I will not let my child bear it. In the end, he would rather be punished and fight with the two of them to the end. Watching the two of them get away with it would inevitably form a heart demon over time, so he might as well vent his anger today. Grandpa, I can deal with them. Yi Tianyun said indifferently, trust me. Yi Tianyun looked at Yi Yuanlong with burning eyes, and after a moment, Yi Yuanlong seemed to see his son's unwavering eyes. No matter how many people tried to dissuade him, he still married Zhao Lingyi and eloped with Zhao Lingyi. He knew that there was no way to change it, so he could only let his son go. Clan leader, I wonder if you approve of this life and death duel. Yi Tianyun smiled lightly. This is completely a personal duel, it will not involve any factions, it is purely a life and death duel. Although others felt that his head had been kicked, those who knew Yi Tianyun's strength knew that he was not joking. So what if it was the Fengtian Divine Kingdom? Suo Kaifeng was silent for a moment, then nodded. The Fengtian Divine Kingdom does not prohibit life and death duels, especially for outsiders. If you agree, I can be a witness. Yi Tianyun was not considered a member of the Fengtian Divine Kingdom, after all, he had not joined. Thank you, clan leader. Yi Tianyun said gratefully. He did not want to involve the Fengtian Divine Kingdom, he still wanted to borrow its strength, and even if his father woke up, he did not want to see the Fengtian Divine Kingdom destroyed. Kid, are you sure you are right? If we win, you will give us your divine artifact. Life and death. Do you want to wear the divine artifact later? The third elder asked loudly, staring at the weapon in his hand, as if he was ready to take it. After all, a divine artifact was too rare, and it was a life and death duel, it was undoubtedly very harsh. Yes, life and death. As long as you can defeat me or kill me, the divine artifact is yours. I will only use this sword, I will not wear anything else, Yi Tianyun repeated calmly. The first elder and the third elder's eyes lit up, and they immediately agreed, okay, no problem, life and death. Their eyes were filled with malice. Since life and death was not a matter of life and death, they would definitely not let Yi Tianyun go. Previously, Yi Tianyun had exposed the third elder, he would definitely not let him go. If that happened, not only would he lose his life, but he would also lose the divine artifact. It was really a loss of life and equipment. The others shook their heads. Although they had seen the shameless side of the two elders, they had to admit that Yi Tianyun's side was even more stupid, and no one would sympathize with a fool. Where should we fight? Yi Tianyun asked calmly. Here. There is no need to go outside. If you can break this hall, then you are strong, Suo Kaifeng said. Okay, the venue will be here. Is there any problem? Yi Tianyun looked at them and said. Of course there is no problem. It is the same for us. The third elder said indifferently, although you said that two people can deal with you, as your seniors, we won't take advantage of you. Let me deal with you. As you wish. Since you want to die so much, I welcome you. Yi Tianyun gestured, you can make your move. At this time, everyone had already retreated a little, giving them some space to fight. The hall was quite spacious. Unless they were running away, it was definitely enough for a fight. Kid, it seems that you are quite arrogant. The third elder laughed coldly. If that is the case, then I will not be polite. I will say the ugly words first. Swords have no eyes. Second elder, if you want to die before you, then don't blame me. The third elder waved his hand, and a long staff fell into his hand. This was a divine artifact long staff, which meant that Yi Tianyun's divine artifact would not be able to gain much of an advantage. Chapter 716. It was shocking that Yi Tianyun had a divine artifact, but the third elder also had a divine artifact, so the gap between the two of them was instantly closed. Some of them even thought that Yi Tianyun was an idiot. Why would he choose to use a divine artifact instead of a divine artifact? There was already a gap between the two of them, and the opponent was an elder. If Yi Tianyun didn't wear a divine artifact, his chance of winning would be greatly reduced. Does this kid think that the third elder doesn't have a divine artifact? Does he think that he is powerful just because he has a divine artifact? It's possible. It's not a good thing to be overconfident, but if he goes back on his words, he will lose his face. If it were me, I would definitely go back on my words. Can face be eaten? Life is more important. Especially if I lose, I won't even have a divine artifact. I'm not that stupid. Everyone said that Yi Tianyun is really unwise, he should inherit Yi Xingqian's bloodline, how could he be so impulsive? Yi Yuanlong didn't say a word as he looked at the third elder coldly. In fact, he had already made up his mind. If Yi Tianyun was in danger, he would save him at all costs. Even if it was against the rules, he had to save him. After all, this was his grandson. Enough of your nonsense. Stop wasting time and make your move. If you don't make your move, then it will be my turn to make my move. Don't say that I didn't give you a chance. Yi Tianyun signaled him to make his move. He stood at the side with the evil spirit divine sword in his hand. It seemed like he didn't care about the third elder at all. I don't know how Yi Xingqian gave birth to you. You are too arrogant and don't know how to keep a low profile. If that's the case, then I will teach you a lesson on behalf of Yi Xingqian. I will teach you what it means to keep a low profile. The third elder raised his staff and rushed towards Yi Tianyun. His fifth layer Spirit King stage cultivation burst out, and in an instant, he turned into a shadow. He did not unleash his full strength, but at least 80% of it. The main reason was that Yi Tianyun's previous actions were too infuriating, and he wanted to take revenge. In the blink of an eye, the third elder was already in front of Yi Tianyun. He swung the long staff in his hand and smashed it down. A terrifying power appeared behind him. If one looked closely, they would find that it was actually a bolt of divine thunder. No one stipulated what their hollow spirit could be. It could be a person, a weapon, or any kind of demonic beast. The third elder's attack was like a bolt of lightning. The long staff in his hand was covered with lightning. It looked like he was holding a bolt of lightning. He fiercely whipped it towards Yi Tianyun. Once hit by this force, he would definitely die. Rushing thunder rod. The third elder's eyes flashed with lightning, and his body was covered with lightning as if he was the god of thunder. When Yi Tianyun is about to hit Yi Tianyun, Yi Yuanlong on the side immediately moved. His speed is faster than the third elder, but it seems that he can't stop Yi Tianyun anymore, he can only shout, "Stop!" He hadn't expected that the third elder would be so ruthless. He had used a killing move as soon as he made his move. Even an expert at the same level as him would be seriously injured by this strike. Get lost. Yi Tianyun's eyes turned cold, and he waved the evil spirit divine sword in his hand. In an instant, countless evil spirits roared out of the evil spirit divine sword and rushed towards the third elder. It's just an evil spirit. Break it. The third elder's lightning flashed, and a bolt of divine thunder struck towards the evil spirit divine sword. But as soon as the divine thunder struck the evil spirit divine sword, it was immediately swallowed by the evil spirits. Following that, the evil spirit roared and rushed over, enveloping his entire body in an instant. The third elder's eyes were filled with countless evil spirits, and he couldn't see them clearly. The key was that these evil spirits immediately entered his brain, and even his soul, and started to eat crazily. He couldn't block them, and a lot of his soul was eaten. The pain in his soul made the third elder's attack loosen, and he immediately fell to the ground, holding his head and screaming. His face started to turn black, and blood started to flow out of his 7 orifices. It was a tragic sight. The third elder, who had an extraordinary aura, couldn't even block a single sword strike. The evil spirits were terrifying, and the third elder should have been able to break them, especially the divine thunder, which could destroy all evil spirits. Who would have thought that the evil spirits would be swallowed, and that they would lose their ability to fight? You can slowly endure the devouring of this evil spirit, and eat your disgusting soul bit by bit. Yi Tianyun raised his head and looked at the first elder, who was shocked, and said calmly, "It's your turn. Let's begin." The third elder was crippled, just like that. As long as one wasn't blind, they could see that he had been hit, and it was a very serious one. If this continued, his soul would definitely be devoured by the evil spirits. The crowd gasped. They didn't expect Yi Tianyun's strength to be so terrifying, to be able to cripple the third elder in one move. Was this the effect of a godly weapon? It was so abnormal. However, they were both using godly weapons, so why was the difference between them so huge? There was only one explanation, and that was that Yi Tianyun's cultivation was really strong. Yi Yuanlong, who had rushed forward, was dumbfounded. He had thought that he would need to save his grandson, but who knew that he would need to save him? Yi Tianyun had taken care of the third elder in one move, and he had purposely held back. Otherwise, with one slash, the third elder would have been cut in half. "Grandpa, I've said it before. Trust me." Yi Tianyun smiled faintly. Good, good, good." Yi Yuanlong nodded his head heavily, and his heart was filled with excitement. This was his grandson, and he was so strong. Who said that the strength of an outsider who married someone else must be weak? His grandson was so young, and yet he could easily kill the third elder. This alone was enough to prove himself. "Sister, I told you not to worry, right?" Shi Shuyan smiled, and her words were filled with trust for Yi Tianyun. Suppressed with one move. This third elder is much stronger than the four bandits. Jiao Lingyi was shocked, and she was worried that it would be unnecessary for her to just stand there and worry. However, they still couldn't relax. There was still a real opponent, and that was the first elder. The first elder was very strong, and he was many times stronger than the third elder. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to sit in the position of the first elder. Suo Kaifeng's eyes lit up. He didn't do anything to save the third elder, and he just stood there and watched coldly. Because he was only a witness, he couldn't do anything unless they fought to the death. After all, this was a battle of life and death, and it wasn't something that could be achieved by simply surrendering. Although they were elders, some elders would only be a scourge if they stayed, and they would only harm their own clansmen. What was the point of staying? However, his heart was still desolate. If he lost two elders, it would be very painful. However, there was no other way. He could only wait and see if Yi Tianyun could defeat the first elder. Chapter 717. When the great elder saw Yi Tianyun's power, he did not think that it was very powerful. He felt that Yi Tianyun's power was not bad, but not at a level that could defy the natural order. All of this power was under his control. It did not exceed his expectations. Then, he took out a huge axe. Apart from the dense divine marks on it, there was also a perfect curve that outlined the shape of a full moon. There were spots of starlight carved on it, as if a starry sky had been carved on the axe. Everyone could feel the vast power of the stars in it. They felt how small they were. The astral divine axe. The great elder is finally going to use it. It's been a long time since I've seen him use it. Every time he takes it out, he can kill all his enemies. Yes, I've seen the great elder use it before. With one swing of the axe, an entire mountain was split in two. There was even a gap of 1,000 meters. It's scary just thinking about it. This kid is very strong. But the great elder is even stronger. Even if they are a bit lacking in character, I have to say that they are very strong. If our Fengtian divine nation lacks them, how will we defend against our enemies? The disciples stared at the great elder's astral divine axe and then at the sword in Yi Tianyun's hand. The two were not on the same level. Although they were both weapons, it was clear that the astral divine axe was more powerful. Yi Tianyun could also see this. From the materials used, the astral divine axe was more powerful. Although the two were of the same grade, both were low-grade divine weapons. The astral divine axe was superior to the evil spirit divine sword in all aspects. However, this was based on the individual power. If it was combined with a set of equipment, it would be able to crush everything. The power of the Divine King's bloodline? Tianyun asked curiously. Oh, then show it to me. Let me see how strong the Divine King's bloodline that you all hold in such high regard is. The Fengtian divine nation was very strict with regards to bloodlines. They wanted their descendants to inherit more of the bloodline. However, as they continued to reproduce, the bloodline would definitely be diluted. This was unavoidable. The only thing they could do was to slow down the dilution. That was why they allowed the descendants to marry other members of the clan. Unless the original bloodline was very diluted, they would not allow the people of the clan to marry each other. Child, don't wait for him to release his bloodline, hurry up and stop him. Yuanlong hastily reminded. Don't worry, Grandpa. As long as it's not the King of the Heavens himself, no bloodline will matter to me. Tianyun said calmly, I just want to see for myself how powerful the bloodline that you all praise so highly is. Arrogance and ignorance. Everyone came to this conclusion, feeling that Tianyun was too arrogant, too arrogant. He felt that he was invincible. He had just defeated the third elder, and he thought that he could look down on everyone else. This kid is too arrogant. Does he really think he can defeat the first elder just because he defeated the third elder? I dare say that this kid will definitely regret it later. He actually looked down on our bloodline. He is too young, not calm enough, and ignorant about bloodlines. We have the bloodline of the King of the Heavens. They had originally maintained a neutral stance. After all, the first elder's actions were indeed disgusting. However, now they were all biased towards the first elder. Tianyun's tone clearly showed that he looked down on the bloodline of the King of the Heavens. How could they not be angry? Kid, I have to say that you are quite capable. However, if I give you more time, I won't be able to defeat you. However, right now, the world is not yours yet. The first elder had already finished accumulating his power. He stretched out his hand and smashed it forward. With a dong sound, the stars on the astral divine axe lit up one by one. With each star lit up, the power of the axe increased significantly. After 7 stars were lit up, the astral divine axe became extremely dazzling. It was as if he was not holding an axe in his hand, but a dazzling star. Following that, a terrifying and majestic power gushed out of his body. In an instant, it transformed into a vast galaxy behind him. Astral power. The first elder's aura exploded. The astral power in the sky shrouded him rapidly, increasing his strength crazily. The power of the bloodline in his body surged crazily. Relying on the power of the bloodline, he could borrow the power of the vast galaxy. This was the power of the King of the Heavens bloodline. The King of the Heavens not only focused on soul cultivation, but also on the connection with the stars. Once he used the power of the stars, his strength would be greatly enhanced. The evil spirit bloodline could greatly enhance one's strength from within. However, the first elder borrowed the power of the heavens and earth, and even the power of the stars. He borrowed the power of the stars. The name of the King of the Heavens was not just for show. He really sealed the sky and then turned it into his own. As long as one had the bloodline of the King of the Heavens, he would be able to use the power of the stars under the starry sky. This was the greatest asset of the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. The power of the stars was connected to the 3 realms. Even if it was not in the heavenly realm, its power was still astonishing. Under the crazy blessing of the power of the stars, the first elder's battle prowess increased crazily. In an instant, his battle prowess had increased to more than 4 to 5 billion, and it was still increasing crazily. This power was definitely far beyond the level of the peak Spirit King stage, even reaching the strength of the 3rd layer of the Saint King stage. He didn't expect that with the power of the stars, he would be able to unleash so much power. Interesting, no wonder the King of the Heavens praises it so much. As expected of the power of the King of the Heavens, the power to control the whole world. Tianyun smiled slightly, but he didn't think much of it. It was undeniable that this power was very strong, but it was still too ordinary for him. However, he did not underestimate this power. If his bloodline was a little purer, and his cultivation was a little stronger, he would definitely be able to attract even stronger star energy. It would not be a problem for him to skip 4 or 5 levels. It's over. Yuanlong's face sank. The first elder had released his full power, and even if he tried to stop him, he wouldn't be able to stop it. Once the first elder used his full power, the result would be the death of his opponent. Jiao Lingyi's heart almost jumped out of her throat. Shi Shuiyun gently patted her little hand and said with a faint smile, "Trust Tianyun, N." Jiao Lingyi nodded, but it didn't mean that she was really relieved. "Boy, I wonder if you can hold on." Suo Kaifeng's eyes flickered. Compared to the first elder, he was more optimistic about Tianyun. If Tianyun's potential exceeded the first elder's, then everything would be different. Tianyun walked towards the first elder step by step. He casually held the evil spirit divine sword in his hand and said indifferently, "Is this your strength? Can you be stronger?" Chapter 718. Young man, the newborn calf is not afraid of the tiger. I admire you for having the courage to say such words. But it's a pity that the duel is about to end. This set of equipment is mine. I hope that in your next life, you will learn to keep a low profile. Don't be so arrogant. The great elder did not show any mercy. He aimed at Tianyun and chopped down with his axe. A beam of starlight fell from the sky. The great elder turned into a star and fell down. It was so fast that most of the practitioners could not see it. They could only see a long beam of light. Like a tiger hunting a rabbit, he used all his strength. The great elder did not relax at all. He used all his strength. Even though Tianyun's cultivation was much weaker than his, he still used all his strength to attack. This was his personality. No matter who his opponent was, he would not show any mercy. He felt that Tianyun's strength was not weak, but in order to avoid any problems, he had to use all his strength. Under this terrifying power, the ground trembled. Even the sturdy palace was shaking. Fortunately, the strengthened divine patterns were amazing. Otherwise, the palace would have been smashed into powder. The power of the stars that fell from the sky was too terrifying. An ordinary place would have been destroyed by this power. Star godly chop. The great elder waved the huge axe in his hand and chopped towards Tianyun. He did not show any mercy at all. He attacked mercilessly and used all his strength. The power of the stars. Then let me break the sky. I will show you how to absorb the power of the stars. Tianyun's eyes turned cold. He flicked the evil spirit divine sword. Buzz! A terrifying evil spirit came out of the sword and surrounded his body. Then, it chopped towards the great elder. Instantly, the power of the ancient set was stacked. At the same time, a series of effects were triggered. Ding! Successfully triggered critical hit. Damage increased by 3 times. Dong! Suddenly, the evil spirit became 3 times bigger. It opened its huge mouth and swallowed everything in front of it. The evil aura immediately covered the whole palace. Those who got a little closer were immediately affected. They felt like their souls were being torn apart. However, they quickly retreated, not daring to take even half a step closer. If they did, their souls would be torn into pieces. This was just the aura released by the evil spirit. If they were hit by it, they would definitely die. Everyone looked at the evil spirit that could envelop the entire shrine, and they were all stunned. This was the most terrifying existence they had ever seen. This attack could even be said to surpass the Grand Elder, even surpass everything. Break! The Great Elder let out a furious roar and heavily struck down with his axe. The dazzling starry divine axe blossomed with an astonishing radiance. However, in this endless darkness, his starry divine axe's radiance was like a candle, flickering in the wind and about to be extinguished at any time. No matter how dazzling the light was, it was completely devoured by this terrifying evil spirit's attack. Boom boom boom. The two frightening powers collided. The sharp starry divine axe chopped down. In the beginning, it was able to split open the axe a little, but in the end, it was engulfed by the boundless black fog. The rest of the evil spirits continued to open their mouths and devour the stars that shrouded the sky in one gulp. All of a sudden, the entire world became dark, as if the end of the world had come. It was so dark that one could not even see their fingers in front of them. The sky has been devoured. Everyone immediately had the same feeling. The dazzling power of the stars that they were so proud of had been devoured just like that. What replaced it was endless darkness that enveloped the entire world. However, it did not last long. Soon, the evil spirit was retracted and absorbed back into the evil spirit divine sword. Light returned to the shrine, and everything was normal. The surroundings were not destroyed, and no one was attacked. Only the great elder fell to the ground. His face was black, and he held his head and screamed. Just like the third elder, he was also screaming. Without a doubt, his soul was being devoured bit by bit. There was no difference in the effect. The biggest difference was that the attack just now was extremely terrifying. It was much stronger than the attack that he had used against the third elder. The two were not on the same level, and the onlookers were dumbfounded. The invincible great elder had been killed in an instant. Both of them used one move, but Yi Tianyun's attack was more domineering, and he directly suppressed the great elder. However, everyone could see that Yi Tianyun had shown mercy. If the evil spirit had been a little more cruel, it would have definitely torn the great elder to shreds. However, he did not do so. The power of the stars is not bad, but unfortunately, I've devoured it. Yi Tianyun said calmly, the two of you can have your evil souls devoured bit by bit. I hope that you can turn over a new leaf in your next life. He put away the evil spirit divine sword. Everyone stared at him blankly. It was not that he was too arrogant, or that he had forced himself to endure, or that he had been blinded by victory. It was that he truly had the strength to withstand everything. Even the great elder had been crushed. Didn't that mean that he was stronger than the great elder? If he was stronger than the great elder, it meant that he was a sage ruler. Yi Xingqian's son was a sage ruler, and such a young one at that. Everyone was dumbfounded. Jiao Lingyi covered her mouth in shock, and Yi Yuanlong was even more dumbfounded. They had worried for nothing. Yi Tianyun could have won from the beginning, but they had been too worried, and too distrustful of his strength. Ah, the two of them screamed incessantly. They could not withstand the devouring of their souls, and were slowly devoured. The speed was neither fast nor slow. Yi Tianyun had deliberately controlled it. He did not want the two of them to die so quickly. Save me, clan leader, save us. The third elder crawled up with difficulty. His face was frighteningly pale, and his cold sweat had already soaked the ground. It looked as if he was soaked in a puddle of water. He crawled over to Suo Kaifeng with difficulty. His face was pale. He did not want to die, and he still wanted to live. However, he was now living a life worse than death, and he felt like committing suicide. However, he did not want to commit suicide. He did not have the courage to do so. Humph. Suo Kaifeng jabbed his walking stick, and the two of them were immediately shrouded, like a wall that blocked them outside. This is a life and death duel. Since you have chosen this, you must pay the price. He did not choose to shield them, but chose to stand on Yi Tianyun's side. He chose to be fair. The life and death duel had already been decided, and he would be breaking the rules by saving them. Previously, Yi Yuanlong had also almost broken the rules. If he had broken the rules, he would definitely have to pay the price. Yi Tianyun looked at Suo Kaifeng, and nodded in satisfaction. If Suo Kaifeng had chosen to shield them, he would not have minded killing the two of them. Suo Kaifeng could ignore it, but he must kill the two of them. Chapter 719. Suo Kaifeng's ruthlessness caused many people's hearts to tremble. It seemed that their patriarch was really merciless, not willing to help, not even saying a word to help. This was really shocking. One had to know that the two people in front of them were elders. How could they just let them die like this? Wouldn't this make the current situation of Fengtian Divine Kingdom even worse? Originally, Fengtian Divine Kingdom's situation was more serious. It had a relatively small number of masters. It was only in name, but in fact, the situation was already quite bad. The key point was that Great Elder's cultivation would break through to the Saint King stage in the future, but now that a Saint King stage master was dead. Yes, it was a life and death duel, but both of them had already lost the ability to move. It was already considered a loss. As long as they paid a small price, it wouldn't be long before they could redeem their lives. However, Suo Kaifeng did not do this. He chose to watch from the sidelines. Patriarch, please save my father. At this time, the Great Elder's sons, or those who had a little relationship with him, knelt down one after another. It was undeniable that Great Elder went to encircle Yi Xingqian, but it had nothing to do with them. As long as he was not related to them, it didn't matter. Patriarch, we are willing to pay any price. Many people knelt down one after another, begging Suo Kaifeng to help them save the two elders. Yi Xingqian's life and death had nothing to do with them. They just wanted to save the two elders now. It's useless to talk to me like this. If you want something, go beg Yi Xingqian's son. Suo Kaifeng was not a fool. He could feel that Yi Tianyun's strength was very strong. At such a young age, he could obtain such a terrible power. If he did not give Yi Tianyun face, he would definitely regret it. This was the most sincere thought in his heart. If they did not obey Yi Tianyun, then they would miss a super genius. The key point was that from the point of view, Yi Tianyun was not wrong at all. They had agreed to a life and death duel. If it was someone else, they would have already been cut into several pieces. This was a true battle of life and death, unlike Yi Tianyun's torture. Their faces darkened, but they still ran over and knelt in front of Yi Tianyun, begging Yi Tianyun to spare the first elder and the third elder. I beg you, let our great elder go. We're willing to give you all our treasures. Great elder, their treasures are all yours, please let them go. All of them were pleading, especially their descendants, who were constantly kowtowing. Even though he was extremely unwilling, this was the reality. With the difference in their strength, he could only kneel and beg for mercy. Yi Tianyun stared coldly at the group of people and said coldly, when my parents were surrounded and ambushed, what were they thinking? If not for my father's strength, they would have died long ago. I've been poisoned since I was young. If it wasn't for the antidote, I would have died a long time ago. Did they ever think of this when they did it? Let me ask you, if we did this, surrounded and killed the two elders, or even poisoned your own children, would you let us go? His voice was not loud, but every word he spoke smashed into their hearts, full of shock. At the same time, they received a message, which was that there was no way they would let the two elders go. Because if they were in his shoes, they would never let them go. Please be magnanimous. Everything is in the past, please spare the great elder's life. All this while, we've been repaying evil with kindness. Please let the great elder go, we will be extremely grateful. Yes, yes, yes. Repaying evil with kindness, we will be extremely grateful. They kept begging Yi Tianyun to let the two elders go, even bringing up the idea of repaying evil with kindness. But to Yi Tianyun, it was meaningless. Sadly, I don't like to repay evil with kindness, and I've never said that I'm a good person. Yi Tianyun said calmly, just now, they refused to repent, and even tried to deny it. Even my grandfather was dragged into this mess. Leaving them here is just a waste of resources. Yi Tianyun looked at the two elders who were rolling on the ground and ignored the disciples who were begging for mercy. No matter how they begged, Yi Tianyun did not drink a single drop of water and looked at the two elders who were screaming in pain. It seemed like even if they were saved, their souls would be badly damaged. Jiao Lingyi's eyes were cold, and she had no intention of letting them go. Even Yi Yuanlong did not try to persuade Yi Tianyun to let it go. They were all ruthless people, and they knew how to treat others. If others gave them benefits, they would definitely repay them. If others gave them hatred, they would definitely take revenge. If the two of you can't hold on, I'll allow you to kill yourselves. Yi Tianyun said calmly, I'll give you the last bit of dignity, which is equivalent to giving face to the Fengtian Holy Kingdom. They thought that Yi Tianyun would say something, but it turned out that he wanted them to kill themselves. If they did not kill themselves, they would continue to be tortured. They now had two choices, kill themselves, or wait for their souls to be gnawed to death. You will die a horrible death. I curse you to never be reincarnated. The great elder who was rolling on the ground struggled to get up, and raised his hand to slap his head. But just as his hand touched his head, Yi Tianyun slapped the air and sent him flying. There are many people who curse me to never be reincarnated, and you are not one of them. I originally wanted you to die with dignity, but unfortunately, I hate it when people curse me, Yi Tianyun said calmly, since you want to curse me, I'll curse you to your heart's content. Then, he walked in front of the great elder, grabbed his head, and pulled out his soul. Then he threw it into the air, and a flame appeared, burning it crazily. The great elder screamed in agony, and the pain he was experiencing was many times more intense than before. Bastard, I want you to die, I. The great elder couldn't even speak clearly, and the flames burned him incoherently. This situation caused everyone's hair to stand on end. They didn't expect that Yi Tianyun would be able to forcibly pull out his soul. He was simply a demon. On the side, the third elder also wanted to curse, but his heart trembled. Using the last bit of his strength, he took out a long sword and used his body to press down. With a poochie sound, the long sword pierced through his head, and he died. He didn't even have the strength to hold the long sword, and could only use his own body weight to press down and stab himself to death. If he still had the strength, he would rather fight Yi Tianyun than choose to kill himself. With a bang sound, he completely stopped breathing, and lay on the ground, unable to move. Blood flowed everywhere. Suicide was terrifying, but the pain from being gnawed on by evil spirits made him want to kill himself. Chapter 720. The third elder's suicide caused many people to clench their fists, but they couldn't say anything. Life and death duels were basically like this. When Yi Tianyun said life and death duels, their eyes were filled with ecstasy and they thought he was an idiot. Now that Yi Tianyun had done this, it made them angry and unwilling. Yi Tianyun had nothing to do with them, so his life and death didn't matter. Similarly, the third elder and the others had nothing to do with Yi Tianyun, so what did their lives and deaths have to do with him? Third elder. Many people cried out. They were the third elder's disciples, and many of them were even his apprentices. Now that their master had been killed, how could they feel good? They all glared at Yi Tianyun, but it was meaningless. Yi Tianyun didn't care about their looks at all. He had seen this kind of look many times and was already numb to it. It was normal for them to be angry and want to take revenge. To him, they were welcome at any time. If you want to take revenge, I welcome you at any time. My head is right here, waiting for you to take it. Yi Tianyun said calmly, but if I find out that you attack my family and friends, it won't be that simple. If you don't believe me, you can try. His tone was calm, but what he said wasn't simple, and it sounded terrifying. From the way the great elder was being tortured, it could be seen that if anyone dared to lay a hand on his family or friends, they would definitely die a horrible death. There was no point in talking. He needed to be strong enough to scare them. Otherwise, they would all look down on him, and there would be no point in saying anything. I beg you, please give our master a quick death. A few disciples came to Tianyun and knelt down. They knew that they couldn't change this fact, and they could only hope that Tianyun would give the first elder a quick death. They didn't want to see him being tortured here. They were furious and wanted to challenge Tianyun, but they knew that they couldn't win. Even their master had been crushed, so they would only die if they went up. Give your master a quick death. Tianyun looked at them coldly and said, I gave him a dignified death, but he didn't cherish it and even cursed me. Since he wants to curse me, then he can curse me at will. I will listen here. Then, he allowed the great elder to be set ablaze in midair. He turned around and walked towards Zhao Lingyi and the others. He smiled and said, Mother, Aunt, I didn't disappoint you, did I? You're still calling me Auntie. Shi Shuyan glared at him, hinting for him to change the way he addressed her. Hee, I almost forgot, Tianyun shrugged and said with a smile, I'll change the way I address you in the future. I should call you my wife now. Pfft. Don't shout here. Shi Shuyan blushed, feeling very embarrassed. Zhao Lingyi, who was standing next to Tianyun, smiled and looked at Tianyun with a gratified expression. His performance surprised Zhao Lingyi. She thought that Tianyun was strong, but he was only at the 8th or 9th layer of Spirit King stage. Therefore, she was very worried when she faced the Great Elder. She was sure that Tianyun could use the power of the stars to unleash a terrifying power. But who knew that Tianyun would be killed in a second? Many people were angry when they saw the situation. They were filled with shame and anger. The Great Elder was screaming in pain, but they were still talking and laughing, so how could they not be angry? But it was useless to be angry, they couldn't defeat Tianyun, and their patriarch was the witness, so what could they say? This was the principle of the victor being king. Yuanlong also walked towards Tianyun and said, Child, give the Great Elder a quick death. He sighed. Although the Great Elder's death was not to be regretted, the punishment was too long, and everyone here was from the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. Since Grandpa said so, then I will give Grandpa face. Tianyun waved his hand, and the Great Elder in the air was immediately burned to death, leaving no residue behind. Along with the last scream, the Great Elder completely disappeared from this world. Without the Great Elder's screams, the entire hall finally quietened down. It wasn't as creepy as before. But then, the Great Elder's body started to burn, and in a blink of an eye, only a pile of ashes remained. The Great Elder's soul is gone, and his body will be burned to ashes. If it wasn't for Yuanlong's good attitude, and Yuanlong treated his mother well, it was enough to prove that he supported the union between the two of them. However, the entire tribe did not agree, so they could only forcefully separate them. In the end, they still chose to let Xingqian leave, and the two of them would live outside forever. They thought that they would be able to live happily outside, but who knew that they would have to send off their son. Clan leader, thank you for your support. Tianyun expressed his gratitude to Suo Kaifeng. If Suo Kaifeng had stopped him, he would have been in a difficult position. Every debt has a debtor. Just let him be. Suo Kaifeng shook his head, and then looked at the crowd coldly. This is a duel to the death. Before the battle, they had already made it clear. If anyone wants to seek revenge on him, they will be making things difficult for me. The crowd was stunned. Some of them were really thinking of ways to kill Tianyun, but who knew that Suo Kaifeng would stand out and say something to dispel their thoughts. However, the crowd could only nod in agreement, and no one knew what they were thinking. In any case, this was just a verbal agreement. If they left and then attacked, no one would know. After all, the oath had not been made, so it was meaningless. Tianyun knew that this was a friendly gesture. Suo Kaifeng was trying to rope him in. Losing two elders, the best choice was to let him join them, and he could fill the gap in this area. Then, Suo Kaifeng turned to look at them, and sighed, Children, it has been hard on you all these years. Our stubbornness in our bloodline has indeed harmed you, but let it be. The restrictions in this area have been weakened. Moreover, that is in the past, and it was their fault, and also our Fengtian Divine Kingdom's fault. You still have the blood of the King of the Heavens in you. If possible, would you be willing to return to the Fengtian Divine Kingdom? I believe that your father would also be very happy to return. Suo Kaifeng smiled warmly. In order to make up for this mistake, we can provide you with the royal phoenix blood essence, and the heavenly fragrance divine grass. He immediately threw out a huge temptation, and more importantly, it was to make up for the mistake. This way, he would be able to win over the hearts of the people. Yi Tianyun knew that this would happen, and there was no way that Suo Kaifeng would let go of such a powerful force. The Fengtian Divine Kingdom had already declined, and if a powerful genius could join them, that would undoubtedly be the best choice. Yi Yuanlong also looked at Yi Tianyun. He also hoped that Yi Tianyun and Yi Xingqian would return to the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. After all, this was their home. Although it was not a happy place, it was still their true home. Chapter 721. Suo Kaifeng's words caused dissatisfaction among the crowd, but most of them welcomed him with open arms. Yi Tianyun's strength was too strong. If he could join Fengtian Divine Kingdom, his strength would definitely be greatly enhanced. One must know that he was able to suppress 2 elders by himself, which showed how terrifying his strength was. To put it bluntly, he could already become an elder as soon as he took office. This existence was even more heaven-defying than Yi Xingqian. At most, Yi Tianyun was in his 20s. A 20-year-old Saint King stage master, they didn't even dare to think about it. It was simply a miracle. I have to save my father first. Yi Tianyun did not answer immediately, instead waiting for his father to wake up and see what Yi Xingqian had to say. In theory, he did not want to join the Sealing Divine Kingdom. His impression of the Sealing Divine Kingdom was simply too poor. Furthermore, the first elder and third elder's disciples were here. If he stayed here, he might even be ambushed. Moreover, he had his own forces. The only reason he came to Heaven World was to bring Shi Xuan back, the rest had nothing to do with him. It was just that he wanted to wait for his father to wake up before making a decision. That's for sure, I watched Xingqian grow up, I must save him. Suo Kaifeng came to the side of the crystal coffin and looked at it for a while before nodding. It is indeed bloodthirsty poison, a very fierce poison. It is very difficult to detect under normal circumstances. Only when it breaks out will one know that they have been poisoned. It is colorless and odorless, so it is difficult to detect. I didn't expect them to have such a terrible poison and use it on Yi Xingqian. After hearing this, many of the disciples' faces changed. Many of them had heard of this poison before. Bloodthirsty poison did not need too much, just a small drop would be enough. It was colorless and odorless. Once poisoned, it would not take long for the poison to break out. Blood qi would be completely suppressed, making it impossible to burn one's blood essence. As time passed, one's blood qi would become weaker and weaker. The treatment method was not easy, but it did not require blood drinking grass, so it was not exaggerated to this extent. Yi Xingqian's current situation was extremely bad. The bloodthirsty poison was deeply rooted in his body, so he needed precious elixirs to treat it. If it worked, Yi Xingqian wouldn't be lying here in the first place. That's right. When Xingqian was poisoned, we even forced our way out, causing the poison to seep deeper into his body. At that time, he was hiding everywhere and had no time to look for the antidote. By the time An arrived, the poison had already permeated her body. Normal antidotes had no effect at all. In order to find a better antidote, I searched for a long time. Jiao Lingyi's eyes were filled with hatred. Even though the great elder and the third elder were dead, she was still very angry. They just wanted to leave this damned place. Who did they offend? He hadn't harmed the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. At most, he had escaped. He had never thought of taking revenge on the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. Who knew that the 2 great elders would be so ruthless, not even giving them a chance to turn things around? Xingqian wasn't the only one who was poisoned. Even Tianyun was secretly poisoned. What are their hearts made of? Jiao Lingyi said angrily, we were wrong, but how can you treat us like this just because we were wrong? She yelled hysterically. Her voice was filled with anger and sorrow. Everyone fell silent. They couldn't deny that Jiao Lingyi and the others were wrong, but they didn't deserve to die. In the end, they became sacrifices for power and were killed by the two great elders. This is my fault. Suo Kaifeng admitted. He sighed deeply and said, no matter what, it's all over now. We should think about how to cure the poison. We don't have the blood-drinking grass or the imperial phoenix blood essence. We only have the heavenly fragrance divine grass. The blood-drinking grass. I just got it recently. Jiao Lingyi took out the blood-drinking grass. The surging blood qi was shocking. It was a rare 6th grade spirit medicine. Looks like there's only one thing left. The imperial phoenix blood essence is expensive. It's worth 3 high-grade sacred tools. Now that the road is blocked, it's difficult to trade with the Phoenix clan. We can only send a few more masters down to see if we can trade. The imperial phoenix blood essence is much more precious than normal phoenix blood essence. Even if it's worth 3 high-grade sacred tools, the Phoenix clan might not trade. Suo Kaifeng and the others frowned. Every item was precious. 3 high-grade sacred tools were good, but the imperial phoenix blood essence was even more precious. The imperial phoenix blood essence? I happen to have it. Tianyun stood up and took out a drop of the imperial phoenix blood essence. 1 drop was enough for him. He planned to give the last drop to someone else, but who knew he would use it here? It really is the imperial phoenix blood essence. How did you get it? Everyone was shocked. They thought they would have to spend a lot of effort to get it. Who knew Tianyun had it? I helped the Phoenix clan before, so they gave me the blood essence. Tianyun explained. Everyone's jaws dropped. Although they didn't know what he helped them with, it was definitely important. The imperial phoenix blood essence was very expensive. It was not a reward that could be obtained from ordinary help. Did this mean that Tianyun had a good relationship with the Phoenix clan? Jiao Lingyi was startled. She thought of the indigo phoenix and smiled. She didn't say anything. Even the phoenix was there. It was enough to show how good their relationship was. She didn't say it out loud. Good, good, good. Yuanlong was pleasantly surprised. That means we have collected enough spiritual herbs. We can start making the pills now. Jiao Lingyi was also pleasantly surprised. She thought it would take some time, but now she didn't have to. Yes. We need a high-level alchemist to make the detoxification pill. He needs to be at least a master. There's only one chance. There won't be a second chance. Suo Kaifeng said solemnly. If the pill was made, the ingredients would become trash. They would have to find the ingredients again. It was rare enough. If they failed, it would be troublesome. They nodded in agreement. They had to find a high-level alchemist. Leave this to me. I'll go to the Medicine God Valley sect and invite an alchemy grandmaster to come and refine pills. It's too difficult to invite an alchemy grandmaster. Suo Kaifeng said in a deep voice, but try to invite an alchemy grandmaster, it will cost a little. The Fengtian Divine Kingdom doesn't have an alchemy grandmaster? Tianyun asked curiously. As soon as he said that, everyone felt awkward. They didn't have an alchemy grandmaster or an alchemy grandmaster. It is not that easy to become an alchemy grandmaster. Do you really think that an alchemy grandmaster is as easy as a cabbage? Aren't you very powerful? Why don't you try to make one yourself? A discordant voice came from the side. It was evident that they were not happy with Qin Fan. These people must be on the Grand Elders or the Third Elder's side. Although they couldn't fight, they could still mock Qin Fan. Tianyun didn't even look at them. He waved his hand and with a pa sound, Tianyun was sent flying. His face was swollen. Chapter 722. Was Yi Tianyun an alchemy grandmaster? Of course not. He was just a high-level alchemy master, not an alchemy grandmaster. Transfer all the proficiency points to me. Yi Tianyun transferred all the proficiency points that he had previously obtained. Very quickly, millions of proficiency points were slammed into the high-level alchemy master, instantly filling up the proficiency points. Ding! Successfully promoted to alchemy master. Ding! Successfully promoted to alchemy grandmaster, Qi refining, level. The next level requires 10 million proficiency points. It was easy, there was no difficulty in leveling up. From alchemy master to alchemy grandmaster, one only needed 1 million proficiency points. Previously, when he completed the main mission, he had obtained a lot of proficiency points, but he had never used them. He wanted to use them according to the situation, where he needed them, and not just casually throw them in. Now was the best proof. He usually did not have time to refine pills, now he could only throw in proficiency points. A second ago, he was still a high-level alchemy master, now he had directly become an alchemy grandmaster, no one would believe this speed. A Qi refining level alchemy grandmaster huh? Yi Tianyun smiled slightly. Alchemy grandmaster was the same as divine rune grandmaster, they were both divided into 3 stages. Alchemy grandmaster was divided into Qi refining, spirit refining, and soul refining. The higher one went, the more difficult it would be to cultivate. But to him, it was just a matter of proficiency. Although he was only at the initial stage of alchemy grandmaster, it was more than enough to refine this antidote, there was no difficulty. You are an alchemy grandmaster. Just as everyone was about to scold Yi Tianyun for acting so casually, they were deeply shocked by his words. It was fine that he was so young, but how could he be an alchemy grandmaster? Bragging should be done according to common sense, this was simply the rhythm of bragging. That's right, is there a problem? Yi Tianyun glanced over, that person's face was already swollen, and said, I do not like people casually interrupting, I am now asking the clan leader, not you. Indeed, he didn't ask anyone but Suo Kaifeng. Who knew that someone would jump out because he was unhappy, so he didn't hesitate to pull back. This was truly arrogant to the extreme. Quite a few people were infuriated. It was one thing for him to make a move during the life and death duel, but who would have thought that he would still hit someone in front of the patriarch? Suo Kaifeng was too lazy to pay attention to them. This group of people was used to being arrogant. They thought that they could interject as they pleased. How impudent. If anyone interrupts again, get out of here. Suo Kaifeng snorted coldly and looked at Yi Tianyun in confusion. Are you really an alchemy grandmaster? Not to mention him, even Jiao Lingyi and the rest were doubtful. How could Yi Tianyun be an alchemy grandmaster at such a young age? Do you think I would joke around with my father's life? Yi Tianyun replied indifferently. It was just that simple and crude. Everyone was taken aback by his words. Yi Xingchen was his father, how could he mess around with someone else? However, that was impossible. Even if Yi Tianyun was born in his mother's womb, there was no way he could have become an alchemy grandmaster. Only Shi Shuyan kept a smile on her face. She had seen Yi Tianyun perform alchemy before. Not only could he perform alchemy, he could also craft Dharma artifacts. He was almost omnipotent. Sometimes, even she couldn't figure out how Yi Tianyun did it. Although it was shocking, she didn't ask too much about it. That was because Yi Tianyun was the person she trusted the most. That alone was enough, so there was no need for her to ask any more questions. I had planned to let you guys perform alchemy, so I didn't want to interfere. This is a chance for you guys to make it up to me. Yi Tianyun shook his head and said, who knows? We don't even have an alchemy grandmaster. It would take a lot of time and effort to hire someone from the Medicine God Valley sect. Especially since I don't know anyone, I will have to do it myself. His words were half true and half false. If they had someone on their side, he wouldn't have helped them. After all, he didn't need to perform alchemy at the moment. If there was someone who could perform alchemy, he wouldn't have helped. Now that he didn't have anyone, he had to step up himself. I trust you. Jiao Lingyi nodded. Although it sounded unbelievable, she still chose to believe her son. Yi Yuanlong nodded and chose to believe him as well. Why wouldn't his grandson believe him? Suo Kaifeng narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Fourth elder, go get him the heaven fragrance spirit herb." Yes, family leader. The fourth elder quickly went to fetch the spirit herb, which meant that Suo Kaifeng had agreed to Yi Tianyun's alchemy. Soon, the heaven fragrance spirit herb was handed to Yi Tianyun. The blood-drinking grass was also in his hand. Finally, all three items were gathered. Then, Yi Tianyun waved his hand and the roaring flame alchemy cauldron appeared in front of him. A sacred tool alchemy cauldron? Suo Kaifeng and the others' eyes lit up. Being able to have a sacred tool alchemy cauldron meant that he really knew how to perform alchemy. However, it was hard to say how good he was. The others stared blankly at the alchemy cauldron. How did this kid get so many treasures? Any one of them was enough to make people go crazy. A sacred tool alchemy cauldron was extremely precious. It was much more precious than weapons. I don't believe this kid can succeed. This is a 6th grade alchemy cauldron. If he is only a 5th grade alchemist or an alchemy grandmaster, it will be a joke. Yes, if he fails, everything will be in vain. Let's see how he ends up. Shoo, lower your voice. If anyone hears you, you will be slapped. In the corner, someone was discussing in a low voice. Although they saw the alchemy cauldron, they really didn't believe that Yi Tianyun could succeed. He was so young and yet he was already an alchemy grandmaster. If he was a 5th grade alchemist, it was possible, but it was impossible for him to be an alchemy grandmaster. It was even impossible for him to be an alchemy grandmaster. It was possible for him to be an alchemy grandmaster. Yi Tianyun didn't pay attention to these trash. When he got the 3 elixirs, he didn't hesitate to ignite the flame. The immortal fire was directly thrown into the alchemy cauldron. With a xiong sound, it quickly burned. Immortal fire. After Suo Kaifeng saw this terrifying flame, he immediately slapped his head and said in surprise, "I almost missed it. The flame he used just now, wasn't it the immortal fire? I didn't pay much attention to it. It was this immortal fire that burned the Great Elder's soul." At that time, they were all focused on the Great Elder's pain and didn't think much about what kind of flame it was. Now that it was used, they were all shocked. This was a flame that belonged to the sacred fire. It was above the amazing phoenix fire. It belonged to the top alchemy sacred fire. Chapter 723. There were quite a number of alchemists who possessed mystical flames, but those who possessed high-grade mystical flames were extremely rare. For example, an alchemist who possessed an inextinguishable flame. Even the clan leader, Suo Kaifeng, had never seen one before. This was the first time he had seen an alchemist who possessed an inextinguishable flame. Those who possessed powerful mystical flames might not necessarily have a high level of alchemy. They might be alchemists or simply used it to kill their enemies. Other than that, there were no other effects. When Yi Tianyun said that he knew alchemy, other than the shocking alchemy cauldron, he also possessed an astonishing inextinguishable flame. Therefore, when he said that he was an alchemist grandmaster, many people immediately believed half of it. With such an astonishing ability, how could they not believe half of it? The problem lay in the following alchemy techniques and whatnot. It all depended on how he did it. Yi Tianyun did not care about the gazes of the people around him. He threw in 3 spiritual herbs in one go, scaring everyone. What's going on? He threw in all the ingredients. Everyone was dumbfounded. Normally, one would throw in all the ingredients one by one or one by one. This way, it would be easier to refine the ingredients slowly. Although they were not alchemists, they had seen many alchemists do it. Therefore, they more or less knew a little about it. Who knew that this time, Tianyun threw in all the ingredients in one go? These were all high-grade spiritual herbs. The difficulty of refining them was much higher than ordinary ones. Throwing in all the ingredients in one go undoubtedly doubled the difficulty. Even Jiao Lingyi and the rest were dumbfounded. Who would have thought that Tianyun would refine pills in such a way? It was beyond their expectations. Crackle, crackle. When the 3 ingredients were thrown in, they immediately exploded. The entire alchemy cauldron shook violently as if it was going to explode at any time. One by one, they subconsciously dodged to the side, not daring to go near. The explosion of a high-grade pill was definitely not weaker than the attack of a super elite. They could only quickly move further away, otherwise, they would be the ones to die. Idiot, is this guy really an alchemist? He threw in so many spiritual herbs in one go. He's going to explode. That's right. Quickly move further away. If it explodes, we're dead. I don't want to die. Is this really an alchemy grandmaster? He's basically an alchemy idiot. Even if I were to refine pills, I'd still be better than him. Their eyes were filled with disdain. They felt that Tianyun was an alchemy idiot, and that any 2nd or 3rd grade alchemist could refine better than him. At least they knew how to distribute the elixirs and throw them in for refining. However, Tianyun just threw them all in. According to the terminology of alchemists, this was a foolish act of courting death. Tianyun's expression was indifferent, and he couldn't be bothered to pay attention to their gazes. The inextinguishable flame crazily increased the intensity of the flames, and the refining speed suddenly increased. Zhang Xian skillfully melted the spirit herbs in the cauldron. Even though there was a series of crackling sounds, the cauldron did not explode. He continued to refine the spirit herbs in a steady and safe manner. Just when they thought the cauldron would explode, it didn't. The cauldron remained stable. Standing at the side, Suo Kaifeng's eyes flickered. At first, he thought that Zhang Xian was refining randomly, but now he realized that everything was refined according to the normal order. In fact, it was much faster than the normal order. In less than a moment, all the elixirs were melted into liquid, and he began to extract the essence and remove the impurities. Bit by bit, he condensed the pills. The order was no different from that of ordinary alchemists, except that it was too simple and crude. Cooking in one pot. They thought that the cauldron would explode, but as time passed, nothing happened. Instead, they could see the pills being condensed. The whole process didn't take more than a few hours. It should be known that refining a 6th-grade pill would definitely take a few days, or even a week or 2. On the contrary, he was about to succeed. His speed was far beyond their imagination, shocking them. Impossible, can he really succeed in concocting pills? This cauldron should be exploding soon, right? Until the end, there's no telling if he can succeed or not. Sometimes, there will still be failures in the end. Yes. It's okay at the beginning, but the difficulty of collecting the pills is also greater. The spiritual energy is too strong. If he can't fuse them, everything he has done before will be in vain. They still weren't convinced. They felt that Tianyun would still fail in the end. Unfortunately, their speculation didn't last long. Tianyun moved his fingers, and the flame inside suddenly increased. Not only did the pills not explode, but they also accelerated the fusion process. Ready to take the cauldron? Tianyun said indifferently. After a moment, he gently waved his hand. With a dang sound, the top of the raging flame pill cauldron popped up, and 2 pills flew out from inside. As soon as the pills flew out, they turned into a red light and flew towards the door. They were actually trying to escape. The 6th-grade pill had a preliminary spiritual nature, and it planned to escape from here and run outside. If it ran away, it would be very difficult to find it. After all, the pills were so small. Hiding them was undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. Come down. Yi Tianyun's eyes turned cold. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at the void, and the 2 pills fell into his hand just like that. When he opened his hand again, 2 bright red pills appeared in front of him. They looked as shiny as pearls, and there were even 5 ripples flowing on them. Fifth refinement grade 6th grade pills. After everyone saw it clearly, they immediately gasped. They thought that Yi Tianyun was refining 1st refinement grade pills. Who knew that it was 5th refinement grade pills? This was definitely a standard that was extremely difficult. 6th grade pills were already difficult to refine. Now that there was the 5th refinement mark, it meant that the effect had greatly increased. It was at least 7 or 8 times the effect of 1st refinement. The key was that there were 2 pills. Everyone thought that he could only refine 1, but he could refine 2. 5th refinement grade pills, this kind of alchemy technique really leaves us in the dust. Suo Kaifeng's eyes burst with light. The way he looked at Yi Tianyun was a little more pleasantly surprised. If Yi Tianyun's cultivation had surprised him before, now that he had an additional alchemy grandmaster level, Yi Tianyun was even more gold-plated. And it was the kind that was blindingly bright. These are the pills that I've refined. I wonder what's wrong with them. What do you think about my alchemy level? Are you talking nonsense? The 2 pills floated in Yi Tianyun's hand. He looked around and said calmly, is there anyone else who thinks that my pills are ineffective? If someone wanted to say that there was a problem with him, let alone one reason, they could come up with hundreds of reasons. At this moment, everyone fell silent, not daring to say anything. Chapter 724. Aren't you worried that the cauldron will explode? Suo Kaifeng looked at the 2 pills. If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he would have found it unbelievable. It was too fast and of such high quality. Only people with poor control will take it slow. I just don't want to waste so much time. Yi Tianyun glanced at Yi Xingqian lying in the crystal coffin and said, Father is waiting for the antidote, so I have to be quick. Alchemy was never about technique. It was about the alchemist's ability. If the alchemist was too weak, they would have to throw it in bit by bit. He had perfect control, so he wasn't afraid of the cauldron exploding. He could throw in a cauldron casually, and his speed was amazing. Suo Kaifeng shook his head and said, I have to say, you are as good as the Medicine God Valley Sect's elders. Yi Tianyun said as he looked at Suo Kaifeng. If Yi Tianyun could stay in the Sealing Heaven Divine Nation, he would be as good as the elders. Not to mention the elders, he would be worth more than Suo Kaifeng. Not only did he have combat strength, but he also knew alchemy. That alone was amazing. Mom, this is the pill. Give it to Father. If it doesn't work, there is a second one. Yi Tianyun handed one of the pills to Jiao Lingyi. Jiao Lingyi took the pill excitedly and nodded. She stepped in front of the crystal coffin. She gently pushed open the crystal coffin and released a cold aura. If one looked closely, they would see snow lotuses and other things. Just like Renjiro, Yi Tianyun relied on these things to help him sleep. In this case, it could make the effects of his deep sleep even better, and it could also greatly reduce the consumption of his own energy. Some of the elders who were about to step into their coffins would seal themselves into a deep sleep. This way, they would be able to live a little longer. When necessary, they would break the seal and come out to help the sect one last time. There were many people like this. Most of the elders chose to seal themselves. If there was a pill that could prolong their life, they could live longer. Jiao Lingyi stuffed the antidote pill into Yi Xingqian's mouth and used her spiritual power to help him absorb it. Very quickly, the detoxification pill was absorbed, leaving nothing behind. It hadn't been long since he started to absorb the energy, but his face immediately started to regain some color. From the initial bit of redness, it gradually became more and more rosy. Not only his face, but even his hands and feet gradually became rosy. A thick blood qi was released from his body, and the effect was quite shocking. This was a 5th refinement grade medicinal pill, so how could its effects not be shocking? It was definitely 7 to 8 times better than an ordinary refined pill, which was equivalent to taking 7 to 8 pills. It was impossible for it to be bad. Jiao Lingyi was helping him absorb the energy. Yi Xingchen was in a deep sleep, so the absorption was slower. He needed someone to help him absorb the energy. Yi Yuanlong watched nervously from the side. He also wanted to help, but it was better to have as few people involved as possible. The more people there were, the more chaos it would cause. The two of them had never worked together before, so working alone was the best choice. Besides, they didn't need anyone's help now. Jiao Lingyi could do it herself. Her cultivation is already at the 4th layer Spirit King stage, which is quite a powerful level for her. But for the Sealing Heaven Divine Nation, this wasn't their ultimate goal, they needed a strong descendant. In this Divine Nation, it was the Saint King stage that determined the strength, not the Spirit King stage. Most of them were stuck at the Spirit King stage, and it was difficult for them to continue to break through. Many geniuses thought that they could break through to the Saint King stage, but most of them were stuck at the Spirit King stage, which showed how difficult it was to break through. That was why they paid so much attention to their bloodline. Even if they were stuck at the Spirit King stage, as long as they had enough star energy, they could crush everything. The previous Great Elder was the best example. His bloodline was purer, and he was at least at the 2nd or 3rd layer Saint King stage after using his bloodline. If it was anyone else, they would not be able to do it. Even the evil spirit race would not be able to do it. From this, one could see the importance of bloodlines. It was not that they looked down on the experts of the outside world, but that only those with the bloodline of the Heaven Sealing God King could use the power of the stars. Soon, with the help of the detoxification pill, Yi Xingchen's condition quickly improved. Well, Yi Xingchen's eyelids twitched, and he slowly opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was Jiao Lingyi and Yi Yuanlong looking at him worriedly. Fa. Father. Yi Xingchen hurriedly sat up, but he felt dizzy, so he could only lean on the crystal coffin and look around. He found that he was in the Sealing Heaven Divine Nation. Clan leader. He didn't know what to say now, but he didn't expect that after escaping with Jiao Lingyi, he would end up in this place. Well, it's good that you woke up, it's good that you woke up. Suo Kaifeng looked at Yi Xingchen with a kind expression on his face. Lingyi, didn't I say that I can't come back? Yi Xingchen said in a low voice. He wasn't afraid that something would happen to him, but he was afraid that something would happen to Jiao Lingyi. It's okay, everything is solved, it's all because of our son. Jiao Lingyi looked at Yi Tianyun with relief and excitement in her eyes. Our son. Yi Xingchen turned his head, and his eyes fell on Yi Tianyun. He was dumbfounded. My son. Yes, this is your son, Tianyun. He's already grown up, and he helped us solve everything. Jiao Lingyi's eyes were full of pride. This was their son. Who said that a super genius would only appear if the bloodline of the King of the Heavens was strong? Now, their son was a super genius. Father, you're awake. Yi Tianyun walked over and clasped his hands. Looking at Yi Xingchen lying in the crystal coffin, Yi Tianyun had mixed feelings. He didn't know what his father's personality was like. Son, I'm sorry. Yi Xingchen reached out and patted him on the shoulder. He didn't know what to say, so his first sentence was an apology. They knew that they owed him a lot, and there was nothing they could do to make up for it, but they could only say sorry. It's okay, it's all in the past. Yi Tianyun smiled. They didn't do anything wrong to him, it was the power that was at fault. Son, it's been hard on you as well. Yi Yuanlong's eyes were red. How could he not be emotional when he saw his son wake up? Father. Yi Xingchen's eyes were full of guilt. He had let down two people in his life. One was Yi Tianyun, and the other was his father. Jiao Lingyi told him the gist of what had happened. Yi Xingqian was shocked, and he stared at Yi Tianyun in disbelief. If Jiao Lingyi wasn't his wife, he wouldn't have believed it. Chapter 725. Yi Xingqian's successful recovery proved that Yi Tianyun's alchemy skills were absolutely top-notch, and the effects of the pills were even more amazing. Yi Xingqian, who was originally pale and had a head full of white hair, had now returned to his normal state. He was full of vigor, and with his jet-black hair, he looked like he was in his 20s. 3 supreme-grade elixirs, each of which was equivalent to half a divine weapon. How could the effects be bad? Not only did it help him recover, but it also replenished a lot of vigor. There was a lot of vigor that he had not absorbed and could be stored. He could continue to absorb it in the future, and not only would it not be bad, it might even be stronger than before. However, it would still take some time for him to completely recover his cultivation. After sleeping for so many years, it was not that easy to recover. Especially with the shocking power of the bloodthirsty poison, the corrosion was more serious, so it would take a long time to recover. However, with this amazing antidote, it would not take too long. At most, he would be able to return to his peak in a year or so. Suo Kaifeng immediately began to make arrangements for them to live here, and everything was properly arranged. Although many people were resentful and expressed their dissatisfaction with Yi Tianyun, no one would do anything to him, and they all stayed obediently. The few of them received the highest standard of treatment. No one would believe that they could receive such treatment after killing 2 elders. The real inside story was equivalent to killing 2 traitors, so the treatment was definitely different. If the first elder and the third elder were killed by Yi Tianyun without any problems, Suo Kaifeng would definitely go after him instead of treating them well. That was simply the behavior of an idiot. In any case, the matter had come to an end. After resting for a few days, Suo Kaifeng invited them to the main hall. In these few days, Yi Xingqian learned everything. While he was angry at the 2 elders for their treachery, he was more impressed that his son was too strong, and had already surpassed him. During this period, they had a lot of communication, and their intimacy level had skyrocketed. Clan leader. When they entered, they saw Suo Kaifeng standing on the side with a cane. Looking at his back, they all sighed. Suo Kaifeng couldn't hold on for too long. Now that this problem had appeared, it was quite serious. You're here. Suo Kaifeng turned around and looked at them. He smiled faintly and said, I'm sure you've already guessed it in your heart. Actually, his goal is very simple. He wants you all to return to the sealed sky divine kingdom. Although we have done many things wrong, this is a rule that has been ingrained in us for many years. We can only choose to compromise. However, I believe that after I hand it over to you, the Fengtian Divine Kingdom will definitely undergo great changes. The future of the sky-sealing Divine Kingdom will depend on you. Patriarch, what do you mean? Yi Yuanlong was shocked. I plan to pass the position of Patriarch to you. Or rather, I've been planning to pass it to you from the very beginning. The Great Elder and the Third Elder aren't bad, but I could tell that they were too ambitious. Compared to you, I don't have much ambition, but I'm too stubborn. Sometimes, I need a little ambition to stimulate me. Suo Kaifeng smiled faintly and said, Now, my greatest wish is for you all to return. I can't deny that I like Tianyun's strength. He can make up for the loss of the 2 great elders. Although the sky-sealing divine kingdom is doing well, it's actually not as good as it used to be. If a powerful enemy invades, we might be defeated. Suo Kaifeng's words were very straightforward. He didn't beat around the bush or play any tricks. He knew that he didn't have much time left. There was no need to do this. He could only keep them here. Otherwise, it would be meaningless. Patriarch, I've said it before. Everything depends on father. Yi Tianyun threw the question to Yi Xingqian. He wanted to hear his opinion. Yi Xingqian was silent for a moment. Then, he nodded and said, I know that even if we return, there will still be many people who reject us. However, I still plan to return with Ling He. I owe this place too much. I need to make up for it. Although there are many obstacles, I believe that with hard work, many people will change their minds. However, Tianyun's situation is a little complicated. He has power in the mortal realm and can't bear to give it up. I'm not a responsible father. I can't decide whether he stays or goes. It's still up to him. Yi Xingqian looked at Yi Tianyun and threw the question back at him. The reason was that simple. It wasn't that Yi Xingqian was trying to shirk his responsibility. He just felt that he wasn't responsible enough to decide Yi Tianyun's situation. Everyone's eyes gathered on him again. They wanted to hear what he had to say. I'm afraid I can't join this place. However, the Fengtian Divine Kingdom is in trouble. I will definitely help. Yi Tianyun didn't choose to join. He could only say that he would help if needed. After all, his parents and grandfather were here. He couldn't just ignore them. Suo Kaifeng was disappointed. However, he was comforted when he heard that he could help. He couldn't force anything. If they didn't reject outsiders marrying, Yi Tianyun would definitely stay here. Moreover, there's something very important. It's not just our problem. It's the problem of the three realms. He briefly explained the situation. It was the problem of the demons sealed by the three godly kings. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect such a thing to happen. How could they not be shocked when the end of the world would happen in 100 years? I've read about this. There are records of this in the documents left by our ancestors. They said that they were sealing the demons in the mortal realm. They didn't say where exactly. I didn't expect the demons to still be alive after so many years. Suo Kaifeng was shocked. They were just as shocked. Because they had to face a godly king. If a godly king appeared, the three realms would be greatly affected. If there were no other godly kings to resist, they wouldn't be able to resist. Yes. Not only is it not dead, it's getting stronger. Yi Tianyun said in a low voice, that's why I have to build a stronger force or join forces with the powerhouses of other god nations. I have to get all the powerful god nations of the three realms to join forces. Otherwise, it'll be hard to resist. 100 years, Suo Kaifeng thought for a while and said, I will seal myself. When the demons appear, I will definitely come out with the patriarch to suppress them. There was another patriarch in the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. His cultivation was higher than his, but he was too old. Coming out was equivalent to dying. He wouldn't come out unless it was critical. Once he did, he would die for sure. But with our current forces, it's too difficult to deal with a godly king. Suo Kaifeng shook his head. His heart trembled at the thought of godly king. This was a supreme existence. Once they attacked, they would die. That's why we have to see if there are other godly kings. Yi Tianyun said in a low voice. Godly kings. I haven't heard of them in a long time. Maybe they don't exist. Maybe they're in seclusion. I'm afraid there are no godly kings in the three realms. Suo Kaifeng shook his head. If there were godly kings in the three realms, they would have established the strongest empire a long time ago. They would even be ambitious enough to unify a large territory. Especially when a godly king appeared. The world would definitely change. It would be hard not to know. If there are no godly kings, I will break through to become a godly king. Yi Tianyun's voice was powerful and full of confidence. After I break through to become a godly king, I will kill this demon once and for all. Chapter 726. Yi Tianyun's ambition deeply shocked them. Then, Suo Kaifeng laughed and looked at him. You are young and full of vigor. Well said. I look forward to the day you become a divine king. The path to becoming a divine king is extremely difficult. If you don't even have the confidence, how can you become a divine king? Yes, it is a little difficult to become a divine king, but as long as you work hard, you still have a high chance. Yi Xingqian also encouraged him. The others also looked at him encouragingly. They didn't think that Yi Tianyun would definitely become a divine king. They only thought that he had a chance to become a divine king. After all, he was still young and had a lot of time. Who knows, he might really become a divine king. As for those who believed that he would be able to break through to the divine king stage, it was too exaggerated. No one dared to guarantee it. This was especially the case when it wasn't that there weren't these types of geniuses. They reached extremely terrifying cultivation at a young age, but they quickly reached their limits, unable to take even half a step forward. Therefore, they didn't dare to say anything. They could only say that they had to work hard and have a chance to become a divine king. Yi Tianyun knew what they were thinking, but he didn't think much of it. It was too difficult to become a divine king. If it was easy, there would be at least 1 or 2 divine kings around. But now, there were no divine kings. Even the number 1 faction didn't have a divine king. There were a few peak saint kings, but none of them could become divine kings. It was like they were stuck in something. It wasn't that they didn't have the ability to break through, but they were blocked by something. Then, he felt a warmth in his hand. When he turned around, he saw that it was Shi Shuyan holding his hand gently. Her eyes were full of confidence. I believe in you. She didn't say much, just 4 words. She believed that Yi Tianyun would definitely become a divine king. She believed that her man could definitely become a divine king, the king of the 3 realms. Yi Tianyun smiled, with her trust and support, it's enough for him. We don't have much time left in 100 years. Therefore, I plan to go to the underworld to take a look and find another godly king to establish a faction. We need to work together to have a chance of dealing with this demon. Yi Tianyun said solemnly, perhaps I will be able to suppress this demon in the future. However, I have a feeling that other than this demon, there will be more demons barging in. When the time comes, all of us will have to work together to resist, and not be separated like we are now. More fiendish demons are charging in, they looked at each other in dismay. This was a rather terrifying thing, but when they thought about it carefully, it wasn't impossible. Since the first fiendish demon had barged in, there would definitely be more fiendish demons barging in. It was only a matter of time. Child, the responsibility you shoulder is too heavy. Suo Kaifeng sighed and said, that's right, since you don't plan to stay here and need to return to the mortal world to manage your forces, before you leave, the only thing I can help you with is to bring you to obtain the inheritance of my ancestors. Patriarch? Yi Yuanlong and the others revealed shocked expressions. One must know that in order to feel the inheritance of their ancestors, one must be a patriarch or an elder. Now, even Yi Tianyun didn't plan to join, and he was allowed to go. I know what you are thinking. At this stage, and Tianyun is a descendant of our ancestors, obtaining the inheritance shouldn't be much of a problem. It's just that his bloodline is thin, so the effect might be a little weaker. But it's better than nothing. As for the other elders or others who object, Tianyun can become our elder. He doesn't need to manage anything, and can move around freely. That shouldn't be a problem, right? Suo Kaifeng looked at Yi Tianyun, wanting to hear what he had to say. No problem, becoming an elder is not a problem at all. However, I feel that there will be many who object to me becoming an elder. Yi Tianyun laughed at himself. He had killed 2 elders, so many who originally stood on the side of the great elder would definitely object. Don't worry, even if they object, I will force you to become an elder. Suo Kaifeng's voice was full of majesty, if there is no problem, I plan to take you to obtain the inheritance of our ancestors now. What do you think? Of course, there is no problem. Yi Tianyun smiled. He didn't reject any inheritance, the more the better. He was especially curious about the power of the stars. His bloodline was a little thin, but if he could obtain the corresponding awakening, he would definitely be able to erupt with greater power. Who would dislike having too much power? Of course, the more the better. Then, under Suo Kaifeng's lead, they went straight to the peak of the heaven-sealing God Mountain. There were many disciples guarding this place, and they were all at the void spirit stage. When they saw Suo Kaifeng coming over, they all opened up a path to let them in. However, on their way in, they immediately heard a shout behind them. Patriarch, Patriarch! Following that, a group of people rushed over. Most of them were elite disciples, and each of them was a pillar of the heaven-sealing divine kingdom. What's going on? Suo Kaifeng looked at them with a calm expression. None of this was out of his expectations. Patriarch, are you bringing them to the heaven-sealing divine monument at the peak of the mountain? The person leading the group was the fifth elder of the heaven-sealing divine kingdom. Yes, is there a problem? Suo Kaifeng said indifferently. There is no problem. Normally, people will go to the heaven-sealing divine monument to accept the inheritance. Who are you sending to accept the inheritance? The fifth elder's face was solemn, and the disciples following behind him also had stern faces. Their gazes were not very friendly, and it was obvious that they had come with ill intentions. I'm sending him to accept the inheritance. Suo Kaifeng pointed at Yi Tianyun and said. Patriarch, you can't do that. He hasn't joined the heaven-sealing divine kingdom, and he isn't even an elder. He can't accept the inheritance. The fifth elder's face darkened. It was just as he had expected. A large number of people were heading towards the inheritance. As for the person who was going to receive it, it was undoubtedly Yi Tianyun. Both Yi Yuanlong and Yi Xingqian had accepted the inheritance, so it couldn't be them. I'm officially announcing that he will be the second elder, replacing the second elder. Suo Kaifeng announced. I was planning to announce it later, but since the fifth elder has said so, I'll announce it now. The second elder will inherit my position and become the patriarch of the heaven-sealing divine kingdom. Yi Xingqian will also become the first elder. The sudden announcement shocked many people. Not only would Yi Tianyun become the second elder, but Yi Yuanlong would also become the next patriarch. Even Yi Xingqian had become the first elder. This meant that the entire family held the most authority. Who would dare to oppose them? Chapter 727. Suo Kaifeng's announcement stunned them. Even if they had guessed it, they did not expect all of them to become elders. Would there still be a place for them then? Yi Tianyun was stunned. He thought that Suo Kaifeng was really bold to make Yi Yuanlong the clan leader. This was not a problem at all. However, making him and Yi Xingqian an elder was another matter altogether. It was true that Yi Xingqian was originally a member of the clan, but in theory, he was considered a traitor. Although he had rejoined the clan, it was too much of a joke for him to immediately become the grand elder. Clan leader, you mustn't do this. We have absolutely no objection to the second elder becoming the clan leader, but why were Yi Xingqian and his son able to become the elders? They have not contributed to the clan at all, nor do they have any prestige. If they become elders just like that, it will definitely cause chaos. The fifth elder's expression was solemn. It was not that he was spouting nonsense, but if he really did this, he would definitely feel that Suo Kaifeng was being too casual. It was as if he was old and blind, and his brain was not working properly. That was why he made such a ridiculous decision. Things did not go beyond Yi Tianyun's expectations. There would definitely be people who would talk about this. After all, it was inevitable. Yi Xingqian also nodded. He felt that he should not do this. Even if he had returned, he should have accumulated his power bit by bit to gain the recognition of his fellow disciples. Otherwise, without prestige, it would be difficult to convince the masses. At that time, no matter what he said, no one would listen. It was useless to just have a position. No one would listen, and it would be no different from having none. Xingqian had already been chosen as the next elder a long time ago. Many people agreed on this. However, the situation changed, and everyone rejected the two of them together, which caused this problem. Suo Kaifeng said coldly, if it wasn't for the previous Grand Elder and the Third Elder rejecting the two of them, would they have ended up in this situation? In fact, they chose to reject the two of them so that they could secure their positions, which made many people oppose them. Now, open your eyes wide and take a look. Are the sons they gave birth to inferior? The patriarch's aura instantly suppressed them, rendering them speechless. If the two elders had not rejected him, Yuanlong would have become the clan leader and Yi Xingqian would have been qualified to be an elder. Yi Tianyun's cultivation was so strong that he didn't feel any pressure at all when he became an elder. His strength was outstanding, and yet he was not given the position of an elder. Wasn't he looking down on him too much? Even if he didn't have any real power, he should at least be an elder. There was no doubt that strength reigned supreme. Yi Tianyun took a deep look at him. No wonder Suo Kaifeng said he was confident. It sounded reasonable. To put it bluntly, if it weren't for the fact that some people were idiots, they would have done it long ago for their own selfish interests. Now, he was just reascending. He was ascending according to the previous rules, and he didn't break any rules. Everyone looked at each other. That was indeed the case. The people of the sky-sealing divine nation really had to take responsibility for what had happened in the past. Even so, it's still not enough. At this time, a young man stood up and looked coldly at Yi Tianyun. His cultivation is very strong, but you must know that the person receiving the inheritance must have a high concentration of bloodline. I've checked his concentration before, and it's very low, almost negligible. A strong cultivation can become an elder, but the inheritance shouldn't be suitable, right? If he can do it with such a thin bloodline, then why can't I? The person who stood up was none other than the #1 prodigy of the sky-sealing divine nation, Yi Failong. Looking at his furious expression, it was obvious that he was not on their side. He was probably on good terms with the first elder or the third elder. Yi Tianyun narrowed his eyes at this person. Yi Feilong's cultivation was not bad. At such a young age, he had already reached the 6th or 7th layer of the void spirit stage. Of course, compared to him, he was worlds apart. Pa! Yi Tianyun swung his hand and slapped Yi Failong, sending him flying. Yi Failong even rolled a few times. He looked at him indifferently and said, "Do you know what the problem is now?" If it weren't for the fact that his grandfather was preparing to become the patriarch, and other matters, he would have slapped Yi Failong to death. This was why he was a little unhappy. He wanted to hit Yi Failong, but he couldn't. It wasn't that he was too merciful, but in theory, Yi Failong was on his side. Yi Failong was stunned. As expected, he slapped someone without saying a word. He didn't even know what was going on. Hearing Yi Tianyun's words, he was even more confused. What did he mean by knowing the problem? What the hell? You actually dare to hit me? Yi Failong shouted, "I don't know anything. I only know that you are too cruel. Other than bullying people, what else do you know?" Pa! Yi Tianyun slapped him again, sending him flying again. This time, his mouth was full of blood, and he was slapped silly. Cruel? Why don't you try saying cruel to your enemy? In this world, strength is everything. You want to reason with others? In this world, the one with the bigger fist is the true truth. The winner takes all, and the winner becomes the true king. Yi Tianyun said coldly, "My fist is big. Just this alone is enough. Whoever doesn't treat me well, I'll kill them. Whoever is willing to submit to me, I'll be willing to treat them well. It's that simple, and I don't talk nonsense." Chapter 728. Yi Tianyun's words made many people nod, especially Suo Kaifeng's group. They definitely have a deep understanding of Yi Tianyun. Whose fist was the hard truth? What bullshit reasoning? It was all bullshit. If one could conquer the world with just their mouth, what was the point of cultivation? First, suppress everything with the strongest power, then slowly build up their strength. That was the best way. If everyone disobeyed, how could they manage? If they couldn't even manage, how could they become strong? That was simply wishful thinking. The disciples were dumbfounded and didn't know what to say. Yi Tianyun's words had a huge impact on them. What bullshit reasoning! A single punch was better than 1,000 mouths. Let's go back to the original point. Why am I qualified to obtain the inheritance? Even if I don't have any bloodline, I'm qualified to go. It's very simple. I'm strong enough. Just this point alone is enough. If the Fengtian divine kingdom is weak, and the other divine kingdoms attack, you can reason with them and say that their bloodline is too weak to accept the inheritance. Do you think they'll listen to you and scram obediently? Don't be silly, you bunch of idiots. To them, it doesn't matter if they can use the inheritance or not. They'll just occupy it. Yi Tianyun's words made sense. He didn't use his fists on them. If it wasn't for the fact that they were related to the Fengtian divine kingdom, he wouldn't have bothered with them. Yi Feilong covered his mouth in silence. He didn't dare to say anything. Yi Tianyun was right. If the Fengtian divine kingdom was any weaker, they would have been destroyed long ago. At that time, reasoning would be useful. If it was, then it would be useless. Well said. Suo Kaifeng looked at them and said coldly, "This is the reason why I made him an elder. No matter how weak his bloodline is, he must accept the inheritance. Even if it's just a small increase, it's equivalent to strengthening him. After all, he has the bloodline of the Fengtian divine kingdom. He's one of us, not an outsider. I'm sure all of you can tell that I'm on the verge of collapsing. I'm just trying to save some foundation for the celestial sealing kingdom. So many divine nations have been eyeing our ancestors' inheritance for many years. Don't think that this place is unbreakable. Once our enemies realize that we have weakened or that our forces are unable to keep up, they will immediately lead their troops to flatten our Fengtian divine kingdom." "Patriarch," they cried out sorrowfully. They wanted to say something else, but it was as if something was stuck in their throats. Not a single word came out. "Moreover, do you really think that he will hold the power here and stay here forever?" Suo Kaifeng shook his head. "If it weren't for his nostalgia, I'm afraid he would have left long ago. I have my own empire, I personally established it. I believe that it will soon become a divine nation's power." Yi Tianyun coldly said, "I have no interest in Fengtian divine nation. To be honest, I don't care about power or resources. To tell you the truth, I'm the inheritor of the heaven-creating divine king. Just having the inheritance of the heaven-creating divine king is enough." These words shocked them. Everyone knew that the heaven-creating divine king was superior to the king of the heavens. With the inheritance of the heaven-creating divine king, there was no need for the king of the heavens' inheritance. What was even more exaggerated was that Yi Tianyun had created his own empire. Although there was a huge gap between an empire and a divine nation, it was inconceivable that he could create his own empire at such a young age. All of them were stunned. The group of young disciples looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. They looked about the same age, but why was the gap between them getting bigger and bigger? Obtaining the inheritance and creating an empire felt like a miracle. Yi Tianyun was trying so hard to persuade them. Wasn't it for the sake of Fengtian divine nation and his grandfather? After all, this was his grandfather's territory in the future. Thinking back to the previous situation, when did he become so long-winded? He could just slap them to death. What did their life and death have to do with him? It was like his own child. No matter how much trouble he caused, he could only slowly teach him instead of killing him with a stick. In the future, he would have to rely on the younger generation to fight against the monsters and demons. The inheritance I have now, in addition to what I deserve, is more of a kind of compensation. Yi Tianyun said in a deep voice. Think about what kind of compensation it is. Compensation. Needless to say, it was the trouble caused by the two elders. killing them and compensating them with the heavenly fragrant divine grass was enough? Of course not. If they didn't reject it, they would have gotten more. Under the continuous bombardment, all of them were frightened and couldn't say a word of objection. Even the fifth elder didn't know what to say. They were all intimidated by Yi Tianyun. Suddenly, they felt that giving Yi Tianyun the inheritance was equivalent to giving them a reward. If not, Yi Tianyun wouldn't stay here. If Yi Tianyun didn't stay here, it would mean that there would be one less expert to hold the fort. That would be embarrassing. Soon after, Suo Kaifeng smiled faintly and continued to lead them forward. This time, no one refused him. But they still felt it was unfair that they could receive an inheritance with such a thin bloodline. The main thing was that if they received an inheritance with a thin bloodline, the effect would be very poor. It was a waste. Soon, they came to the top of the mountain. There was a stone tablet on the side. It was covered with dense divine runes. They didn't know what it was used for. The divine bloodline tablet, Yi Tianyun looked at the stone tablet and immediately knew what it was. It was specially used to test the power of bloodlines. Back then, it was used to test his and everyone else's bloodline. Wait a minute. Just as they were about to continue in, another voice came from behind. Then, a group of people came in from outside. It was obvious that they were from another group, and they were also the elites here. Clan leader, what's going on? It was the sixth elder. There were many elders here, but none of them didn't oppose Yi Tianyun receiving the inheritance. What's wrong with bringing the second elder to receive the inheritance? Suo Kaifeng said calmly. You can't do that. The bloodline density is too low. Even if you receive the inheritance, the effect will be very poor. If you can't even reach the standard, it will be a waste. The sixth elder was the same as the previous group of people. They were all here to stop Yi Tianyun from receiving the inheritance. After one group was intimidated, another group came. But he wouldn't say it again. Why not? No matter how bad the effect is, there will still be some. Even if it's a waste of the number of times, it's still worth it. Suo Kaifeng said in a deep voice. I am still the clan leader, so I have the final say. Chapter 729. Clan leader, you mustn't. Sixth elder knelt down and cried, now that the number of words in the inheritance has decreased greatly, there aren't many chances left. Instead of wasting it, why don't we use it on the stronger disciples? I know he's very powerful, but this is a waste. If the bloodline is too weak, the effect is almost negligible. Not only sixth elder, but everyone else also knelt down. Only the group of people brought by fifth elder did not join in the persuasion. Yi Tianyun glanced at them and found that his speech could increase their favorability. He found that these people's favorability quickly increased to more than 50 to 60 after his speech, and some were even about to break 100. These people were all around the same age, and were easily influenced by his words. Especially such a legendary achievement, it was easy to attract their admiration. Especially his strength was very strong, when stacked, the favorability would increase very easily. He smiled slightly, it seemed that conquering this place was not as difficult as he thought. It seems that you don't treat me as the clan leader anymore. Suo Kaifeng frowned, and his aura immediately increased. No, no. Sixth elder's heart trembled, and he said while prostrating on the ground, I just want to think about the future. I'd rather give everything I have to second elder as compensation, than to waste this opportunity. So far, the inheritance is about to collapse after less than 10 chances, and every chance has to be used on the disciple with the best bloodline. There's no need to say any more. Just do as I say. Suo Kaifeng ignored him. The only thing he could do now was to rely on the inheritance stone tablet to make Yi Tianyun stay, which was equivalent to a kind of compensation. The rest were quite ordinary, even the divine weapons were the same. No matter how powerful a divine weapon was, could it compare to a set of divine weapons? I want to test the concentration of the bloodline again. At this moment, Tianyun stood up and said, "Sixth elder is indeed more considerate. If my bloodline is really not up to standard, then I am willing to give up this inheritance." He did not expect that there was a limit to the number of times. It seemed that this inheritance stone tablet had been used too many times, causing it to collapse. Everyone was stunned. Wasn't this a slap in the face? They could have walked further away, but they didn't want others to look at this place. Back when Tianyun had taken the test, there had only been a slight fluctuation. If it had been any other disciple, it would have been an utter humiliation, and they would never be placed in an important position in their lives. Now that Tianyun came to take the test, wouldn't he be recalling the pain of the past? The patriarch had clearly tried his best to protect him. If he had persisted a little longer, he would have definitely gotten the inheritance this time. However, he still said that. Instantly, everyone's favorability towards him increased greatly. Those who originally hated Tianyun now had a favorable impression of him. At the very least, it wouldn't be a negative number. It had been a long time since he had taken a close look at his favorability. He had been running around all this time and hadn't been in the mood to tame them. It didn't matter what their favorability was. If possible, he also did not want to fall out with the sky-sealing divine kingdom. Now, it seemed that everything was going smoothly. The sixth elder and the others were overjoyed. They looked up at Tianyun and said, "Thank you, second elder." They didn't have any objections to Tianyun becoming the second elder. With his strength, they could only approve of him. However, obtaining the inheritance was another matter. The benefits were too low, and they really didn't want to waste this opportunity. So Kaifeng frowned, but he still nodded and said, "All right, let's take the test." Everyone had strange expressions on their faces. Some shook their heads, thinking that Tianyun was trying to embarrass himself. He had dared to take the test even though his bloodline was so weak. If they were in his shoes, they wouldn't dare to try again. In any case, no matter how many times he tried, the result would be the same. However, they only thought about it in their hearts. They didn't say it out loud. Tianyun's words were too shocking. So what if his bloodline was weak? Just this achievement alone was enough for him to look down on everyone. Shortly after, Tianyun walked up to the bloodline stone tablet and smiled. Who said that his bloodline would definitely be weak? His bloodline had already become extremely powerful over the years. As for the bloodline of the King of the Heavens, he wasn't too sure. However, he believed that it would definitely be strengthened. Moreover, it was very likely that he had been poisoned by the bloodthirsty poison. That was why such a situation occurred. No matter how weak his bloodline was, it should be able to pass, right? Shortly after, he placed his hand on the bloodline stone tablet. With a buzzing sound, his bloodline emitted a dazzling light and shot up to the sky. Looking up from where he was, it wasn't a ceiling. Instead, it was an empty space, forming a patio. When the light shot up to the sky, it instantly lit up one of the stars in the sky. Soon after, the second star was lit up. Almost instantaneously, the second star was lit up. Then, the third star was lit up. Everyone was dumbfounded. The passing line for the bloodline test wasn't high. You only needed to light up one of them to pass. This was just the beginning and he had already lit up 2 stars. He was even preparing to light up the third. This is already 2 stars. Our son's bloodline isn't weak. It's not weak at all. Jiao Lingyi was so excited that tears were about to fall from her eyes. Yes. Yi Xingqian nodded heavily. Previously, no matter how he tested it, there was no effect at all. Not to mention lighting up 1 star, he didn't even have the slightest effect. This bloodline stone tablet didn't require any spiritual energy to activate. All he needed was the power of his bloodline. The others were even more shocked. They thought that not a single star would be lit up this time. In the blink of an eye, 2 stars were lit up. Very quickly, he continued to light up the third star and moved on to the fourth. There were a total of 9 stars here. He had already lit up more than half of them. He can't possibly have more than 5 stars, right? Everyone was dumbfounded. The strongest among them, the Grand Elder, could only light up 4 stars at most. As for the clan leader, he could only light up 5 stars. Yi Xingqian and Yi Feilong were known as the number 1 geniuses. Just by lighting up 5 stars, they were already known as the strongest geniuses. As for those who had more than 5 stars, that was a thing of the past. Now, those who could light up 4 stars were already listed as targets to be groomed. Very quickly, Yi Tianyun lit up the 4th star and moved on to the 5th. The sky was filled with a dazzling radiance. Everyone in the Fengtian Divine Kingdom raised their heads in shock and looked at the dazzling stars. Who could have caused such a change? Buzz! Following which, the 5th star was completely lit up and moved on to the 6th star. There was no problem at all. In fact, there was plenty of energy left. The lighting speed was quite fast. In the blink of an eye, a star was lit up, including the 6th star. Buzz! The 6th star in the sky lit up the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. Countless rays of light shone down like a miracle. Chapter 730. 6 stars. How many years had it been since anyone had managed to light up this star? Other than the sleeping ancestor lying on the ground, it was hard to find a living person who could light up 6 stars. This meant that the purity of the bloodline was very high, and it was a very shocking one. I'm not dreaming, right? 6 stars have been lit up, the 7th is about to be lit up. I'm not dreaming. He really did light up 6 stars, and he's about to light up the 7th. Who the fuck said that his bloodline is weak? He's already lit up 6 stars. What the hell, it's different from what we said. What happened? Could it be that there's a phenomenon of bloodline atavism? Did he achieve a breakthrough after his cultivation increased? I've never heard of this before. Most of the time, the results are the same when they are tested again. It's not like you haven't seen it before. The clan leader and the others have tested it before, and the number of stars that can be lit up is still the same. There's no change. Instantly, the disciples on the ground were in an uproar, and so were the disciples outside. They did not know who had created this miracle, but their hearts were filled with admiration. It was as if they were witnessing the birth of a miracle. Many disciples swarmed over from other places. They could not go up, but they could still witness everything from below. He's already prepared 7 stars. Suo Kaifeng was shocked. He had previously tried to protect Yi Tianyun, thinking that he could not possibly have a strong bloodline. He was only willing to sacrifice himself to keep Yi Tianyun here. If Yi Tianyun's cultivation was weak, he would not have bothered. Respect for martial prowess was an unchangeable principle, and it was the same for people of the same clan. Most people thought that they had seen a ghost. One must know that they had all been tested before, and many people had seen it. They wanted to give Yi Xingqian a chance to see how strong their son's bloodline was, but who knew that there was no effect at all? I know. Jiao Lingyi shouted, it must be the bloodthirsty poison. He must have been poisoned back then, that's why there's no effect at all. What? He was poisoned back then? Suo Kaifeng and the others were shocked. Although they had heard of it before, they did not know the details. Now that they thought about it carefully, Suo Kaifeng and the others' expressions turned ugly. Could it be that they knew about Tianyun's situation? That his powerful bloodline was a threat to their position, and that was why they poisoned him? Suo Kaifeng and the others were so angry that they wanted nothing more than to drag them out and whip their corpses. However, they had already turned into a pile of ashes, and it was impossible to whip their corpses. That's possible, but it's also possible that they're trying to kill us all. No matter what bloodline they have, they're trying to use poison to kill us. Yuanlong's eyes were cold. If he had known about this earlier, there wouldn't have been so many problems. In fact, it might even affect the structure of the entire Fengtian divine kingdom so that it wouldn't be too xenophobic. However, all of this had been erased by the first elder and the third elder. They had been forcefully erased almost 20 years ago. Otherwise, such tragedies would not have happened. It could be said that there were many. Apart from the two of them, there were many cultivators who went out and met good women, but they couldn't get together. It was really a sad thing. From now on, this matter will be very easy to solve. I thought that it would take a lot of time to change. But now it seems that it won't take too much time. Suo Kaifeng laughed. With this precedent, it meant that everything depended on who had the bloodline, and it didn't need to be a strong combination. The effect would definitely be better if it was a strong combination, but it didn't mean that it would be worse if it was an ordinary combination. Everything depended on the person. If the other party's talent was not weak, the effect would definitely not be weak. Yi Tianyun didn't care so much. He just looked at the stars in the sky and smiled. This was the result he wanted to see. With the increase of his cultivation and the strengthening of his bloodline power. Although the bloodline of the phoenix and the bloodline of the god of the dragon had nothing to do with the king of the heavens, they could all strengthen and stimulate the power in his body. When he became stronger, the power of the bloodline hidden in his body would also become stronger. However, it didn't show its true power. It didn't show in the bloodline section that he had obtained any bloodline power. It hadn't been shown. It seemed that he had to stimulate it to turn it into his own power. This power should be the inheritance. It seemed that he had to obtain this inheritance no matter what. But looking at the situation now, even if he didn't want it, others would fight to let him obtain it. Wang! The seventh star was quickly lit up. Outside, there were already thousands of rays of light shining down, covering the land. Everyone was shocked. Those who didn't know thought that some genius had appeared, but those who knew were deeply shocked by Yi Tianyun. He let them know what was called a misunderstanding. Such a powerful super genius was almost strangled in the cradle by the two elders. After the seventh star was lit, the eighth star quickly lit up. It can still continue. Many people almost swallowed their tongues in shock. It looked too terrifying. They thought that the seventh star was the limit. Who would have thought that there would be an eighth star? But could the eighth star succeed? The answer was quickly revealed. He had successfully lit up the eighth star without any effort. After the eighth star was lit, he continued to rush towards the last star. He was preparing to light up the eighth star. This was something that had only happened in the past several thousand years. No one knew how long ago that had happened. Everyone was dumbfounded. If this continued, his bloodline would be the closest to that of the king of the heavens. Wang! The eighth star was lit up. Outside, countless rays of light shrouded it. It was a miracle. Everyone looked over. The experts of the other god nation forces also sensed the situation. What's going on? Someone from the Fengtian god nation actually lit up the eighth star. They were all stunned, and then killing intent flashed across their eyes. It was not a good sign for such a situation to occur. If this genius was allowed to grow, the other god nation forces would be in danger. It was very likely that the Fengtian god nation would return to the top. But the prerequisite was that this genius had to become a true expert. I don't know who it is, but before this person becomes stronger, we must kill him. All the god nation lords' hearts sank. They had been eyeing this place for a long time. They originally thought that they would wait for the god nation to decline a bit before ruthlessly conquering it. Who knew that a super genius would appear now? How would they deal with him then? Little did they know that the person being tested was Yi Tianyun, a genius who had already become an incomparably powerful expert. Chapter 731. When the eighth star was lit up, it was as if the entire world was lit up. Many people were shaken to the core. They felt as if a terrifying force was smashing into their hearts. Especially when the ninth star was about to be lit up. Their hearts were about to fly out of their throats. This was too terrifying. It was beyond their expectations. They had thought that it would stop at the seventh or eighth star. Now, it was already at the ninth star. It was going to be a terrifying achievement. Many people didn't know if anyone had ever lit up the ninth star before. It was too long ago for them to investigate. At least now, the ninth star was about to be lit up. It was the child of a husband and wife who had betrayed the Fengtian godly nation. All the disciples were dumbfounded. Who the fuck said that the children they gave birth to were of poor bloodlines? If the great elder and third elder were still in this world, they would definitely be incomparably shocked. This far surpassed their imagination. Although they were no longer in this world, their disciples were. When they saw this scene, they couldn't help but feel regret. Great elder, your decision is wrong. Moreover, it's extremely wrong. They looked at the 8 stars in the sky. They could feel that a person's selfish desire could make a super genius disappear. The decline of a godly nation was mostly caused by their own people. They were the black sheep of the herd. This was the best proof. They only wanted to be promoted, but didn't care about the development of the godly nation. This kind of person was the most despicable. When the godly nation was conquered, it was too late to regret. Almost instantly, their impression of Yi Tianyun skyrocketed. Most of them were not hatred, but admiration and guilt. They were the first elder's disciples, but after knowing the truth, they were furious. Some didn't want to admit it, but now it seemed that they had no choice. Regardless of whether Yi Tianyun can light up the 9th star or not, at least he has become the person who has lit up the most stars in the world. Shi Shuyan looked at Yi Tianyun's back and smiled. She was also surprised by this situation. However, compared to other things about Yi Tianyun, she didn't think it was a problem. Buzz. In the end, the 9th star was still lit up. Everyone was dumbfounded. Who would have thought that the 9th star could still be lit up? He was the only one in the world. He really did light up the 9th star. How terrifying! Doesn't that mean his bloodline is the closest to that of the King of the Heavens? This is too abnormal, simply inconceivable. That's right, it's simply unbelievable. Could it be that some kind of atavism really happened? Although it hasn't happened before, it doesn't mean it won't happen to him. All of them were incomparably shocked. The 9th star sphere had been completely lit up, and its light illuminated the earth, almost shocking the entire heaven realm. It could not be said that all the forces in the heaven realm knew about it, but at least most of the god kingdoms knew about the situation here. Everyone was paying attention to the situation here. Now that the 9th star had lit up, their hearts pounded wildly. Could it be that the second king of the heavens was about to descend? As long as there was enough time, becoming the second king of the heavens wouldn't be a difficult matter. Just when everyone thought that everything was about to end, boom. The 9 stars connected, forming a beam of light that shot up into the sky, scattering the clouds in the sky. Following that, an incomparably huge star appeared in everyone's line of sight. When everyone saw this incomparably huge star, they were all stunned. The 10th star. No one had ever seen such a scene before. They all thought that there were only 9 stars. But now, the 10th star had appeared, and it was even bigger than all the other stars combined. Now, the light shot up into the sky and fiercely collided with the 10th star. It began to light up bit by bit, but the speed was very slow. The 10th star. Light it up for me. Yi Tianyun's eyes flickered incessantly. He increased the strength of his hand, and the power of his bloodline began to surge. Dong! The bloodline's steel blossomed with even more dazzling light, and the speed at which it was lighting up immediately increased. At this rate, the 10th star would definitely light up, and there would be no suspense at all. Finally, under this light, the 10th star was completely lit up. Following that, a beam of light enveloped Yi Tianyun's body. The next moment, Yi Tianyun actually disappeared. A group of dumbfounded disciples was left looking at the bloodline stele. Yi Tianyun's figure was nowhere to be seen, as if he had never been on the stele in the first place. After the light disappeared, the star in the sky was once again shrouded by the clouds, returning to its original appearance. He's gone. What's going on? He's gone. One by one, the disciples cried out in alarm. This was something they had never seen before. Whether it was being teleported away or the 10th star, this was the first time they had seen something like this. Not to mention them, even Suo Kaifeng and the rest were seeing something like this for the first time. Someone had disappeared after lighting up the 10th star. Where did he go? It seems like there's no need for me to bring him to the inheritance. I'm afraid the ancestor has already brought him to the true inheritance ground. Suo Kaifeng shook his head and turned to look at them coldly. Now you know what the problem is. We almost lost a super genius. No, it should be said that we've already lost half of one. If it weren't for the actions of those two before, this situation would not have happened. One by one, the elders and disciples lowered their heads in shame, not knowing what to say. They all understood why it was called lost. Because Yi Tianyun had not been raised here since he was young. In a situation where he was already very strong, it was impossible for him to take them as his master. This was like sending charcoal in snowy weather, better than adding flowers to brocade. At the same time, the powerhouses of the divine kingdoms outside were all dumbfounded. The 10th star, what's going on? This is the first time he's seen 10 stars, how did he do it? Quick, ask the people there to find out what's going on. Just who is it that can attract so many stars? Find out everything about that person. I want absolutely detailed information, don't miss a single word. Find out everything for me, no matter what the information is. This child absolutely cannot be allowed to live. If he continues to stay here, our future days will not be easy. The experts of all the forces were in chaos. They all sent people to inquire about the news or to see the situation. Just who was it that could do such a thing? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.